Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto wants to destroy and kill the villagers after the village treatment part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Alright, everything seems to be in place, muttered a young man as he typed on a laptop. He was around 5'7" with shaggy black hair. His attire consisted of a long black overcoat with white trimmings. He had a letter M embezzled on his silver belt buckle. He wore dark blue pants with red lines going down the front of them. On his face was a black mask that resembles the head of a dragon with blue eyepieces and a red jewel in the center of the mask's forehead. This was Medric, one of the Watchers that chronicles specific sectors of the multiverse. Alright. I have this recording done for the RDK universe and I should have one other done today as well. Man, it's hard recording these worlds. I wish this was simpler. Not to mention I have to go back to those earlier recordings and fix some mistakes I made. Plus there are those other new worlds popping up I will need to record as well. Medric sighed. I could really use a break from all this. BZZZT. Medric noticed he received a notification on his phone. He blinked as he saw it was an email from his superiors. Hoping it was the email he was waiting for, he quickly opened the mail. The email had 5 simple words. Your request has been granted. Medric jumped into the air. Yes. He continued celebrating for several more minutes before calming down. Time to get everything ready. He cheered as he disappeared in a black flash. A few minutes later, we find Medric in an enormous room with hundreds of comfortable couch seats with recliners. It looked like a mix between a theater and a large college lecture room. In front of the room was a very large projector. Alright, the projections are ready and food is ready at the leisure of everyone. Everything is good to go. Now it's time to get my guests. Medric said as, with a snap of his fingers, several flashes of light appeared in front of him. Ow. What the hell is going on? Jiraiya, that better not be your hands on me. Sorry Granny. Can one of you please stand up? You're crushing me. Then all of you get the fuck off. Medric couldn't help but laugh at the antics of everyone in front of him. As they all got back on their feet, he looked over everyone he had summoned. Alright, let's see the current viewers. We have the rookie 12 when they were in their young teen years. If I am correct, this is right before Naruto leaves on his training trip with Jiraiya. He rolls his eyes at that. Yeah, right. Jiraiya, the amusing pervert as always. The senseis are all here. Anko and Kurenai are still as hot as ever. Shizune is as cute as ever. Tsunade, damn, her are bigger in person. Viewing them on a screen book really doesn't do them justice. He mused. As everyone got up, they took stock of their surroundings. Where the hell are we? Anko demanded. I don't know Anko, Kurenai replied. Jiraiya, what the hell is going on? Tsunade growled. She was about to enjoy a nice sake break when she was covered in a flash of light along with Shizune. Now she was stuck here. Jiraiya narrowed his eyes. Your guess is as good as mine, he replied. He was in a foul mood as he was getting into some valuable research time when he was teleported here. Tsunade narrowed her eyes as she turned to Naruto. The blonde raised his hands in surrender. Hey. I have nothing to do with this. Besides, I have no knowledge of seals to even teleport this many people. So I am innocent, Granny. Tsunade felt several veins pop as she glared at Naruto for using that blasted nickname on her. A cough got everyone's attention as they looked at a masked figure looking at them with a wide smile. Hello everyone. Who the hell are you? Tsunade demanded as the Jonin, Single Chunin, and Genin all tensed in case this was enemy. Medric shook his head. Now. No need to be so tense. I didn't bring you here to fight. Why did you bring us here? Tsunade demanded. Medric made a calming hand motion in response. Easy, Su-chan. Several more veins popped on Tsunade's head. You'll do your best to keep that temper in check. Who are you? Tsunade gritted out. Medric took a bow. My name is Medric and I am a Watcher. Everyone looked confused. Watcher. Yes, we are godlike beings tasked by higher deities to watch worlds and document their events, so all Watchers may read see them for information or entertainment. Everyone looked in shock. You're a god? A skeptical Naruto asked. Medric nodded. That's right. And each one of us chronicles specific areas of several different multiverses. I am currently recording events for universes in the Naruto-verse. Wait, the what? Everyone exclaimed in shock as they turned to the blonde teen. Naruto-verse. What the hell was that? Let me explain. You see, each universe has its central character that the universe revolves around. And from that universe, several different versions of it pop nearly every day. Think of it as a river being split in different directions or a tree with its branches. The base is the original, and the branches are all the alternative versions of that universe. Sometimes the differences are small, other times the differences are quite radical. Medric then snapped his fingers as several panels appeared as guests. Are they all me? Naruto shouted in excitement as he and everyone saw several different versions of the blonde ninja. That's correct. As I said, this multiverse revolves around Naruto. In each variation, you will find a version of Naruto. Sometimes you're similar to your current self, other times you could be radically different. You could be an Anbu, different facial features, a different gender, hell you could be part of a different clan and even village. Infinite possibilities, so infinite possible versions of Naruto. Wow. Naruto said in excitement as he looked at different panels. One panel showed him wielding two Daido swords, black and white with a wicked-looking mask on his face. Another panel showed him fighting with a group of costumed warriors. One wore red and blue with an S on his chest. Another was dressed as a bat. One was glowing green and fired beams from his ring. Another was a green skin mane that could shapeshift. One was running really fast. A female was holding down the enemy with a lasso as another female with wings attacked with a mace. Hinata blushed as she saw a version of her with Naruto and what looked like an older version of herself and her younger sister, Hanabi. Though she didn't know why her alternative self and sister had butterfly wings. Kakashi raised an eyebrow as he saw a panel where Naruto had a pair of mature Sharingan eyes. What was more surprising is that version did not have a single speck of orange on him. Interesting. He mused. Jiraiya saw a version of Naruto with toad-like eyes. Sage mode. How? He muttered to himself. Naruto seemed so young and yet he has a completed sage mode. How did he master it? More important, why did that Naruto look like he was on fire? Tsunade's eyes widened as she saw Naruto able to perform the wood release. But how? No one has had the wood release except for her grandfather and Yamato, but his wood release is considerably weaker than what her grandfather could perform. Was Naruto her son in that world or perhaps her grandson? She did see the boy as little brother's son, but this was more than she expected. And again, Medric did say infinite possibilities, so anything was possible, she mused. Anko hummed as she saw one Naruto having several females at his side. Many of them being in this very room. Who knew the Gaki could be such a player? And does that version have wings? She asked in confusion. As you can see, there are many versions of Naruto and each is unique in their own way. However, they are all at their core still Naruto in some capacity. What you just saw were just glimpses into worlds that I have jurisdiction over. Jurisdiction? Do you mean to watch over? Kiba asked. Medric nodded. That's right. I am currently charged with recording worlds in this section of the multiverse. I will probably be asked to record watch worlds of other multiverses later on, but for now, the ones I am recording are part of the Naruto verse, except for one. So why did you bring us here? Tsunade asked in a more relaxed tone. I asked my superiors if I can bring you all here to watch some of the worlds I have recorded that has our little blonde here as the main focus. Tsunade narrowed her eyes. Why? She asked in a suspicious tone. What did he gain from all this? Medric just shrugged. I was bored. Cue sweat drops from everyone. And entertainment. Several more sweat drops appeared. And as a learning experience for many of you. Some more than others. I think it will be good for all of you. So what do you say? He asked. Hell yeah, I want to see more. Naruto shouted in an excited tone. Medric chuckled at Naruto's excitement. Everyone else was a bit more reserved but were also interested in seeing more. The idea of seeing other worlds was a hard offer to ignore. I'm in. This could be fun. Anko said. Same here, Kurenai replied with the other Jonin nodding in agreement. I am interested in seeing more, Jiraiya said. Troublesome. This is such a drag, but I'm curious as well. Shikamaru said. Well Medric, you heard the verdict, Tsunade said. Medric nodded as he snapped his fingers as the panel in front of him glowed. The audience quickly sat down to watch. Now if you get hungry just think about the food you want and it will appear in a flash, there's a tray in the armrest if you want to set the food and a holder for any drinks. Bathrooms are to the left and marked. Now the first world you will be seeing is set in the RDK universe. The story takes place on a planet called Earthland in the country of Fiori. This is a world where magic exists. Everyone's widen in surprise. Magic? Like wizards, witches, dragons, and fairies? An incredulous Tsunade asked as Medric nodded. Correct, in this world, magic can only be used by 10% of the population. These people are known as wizards or mages. Their magic is powered by their mana or magic containers. The container is filled with something called ether nano, think of it as chakra. They convert the ether nano into mana or magical energy inside their containers to perform spells. If the container is empty they can't perform spells. Over time the container is refilled up by either resting and or absorbing ether nano particles from the atmosphere. Are you with me so far? They all nodded. So far it's not too complicated as mana containers sounded like chakra network, while ether nano is the chakra that is absorbed and converted to perform spells. Spells come in a variety of forms and there are also a variety of wizards. Physical mages, weapon mages, elemental mages, summoning mages, caster mages, holder mages, etc. Now wizards joined together to form guilds to perform jobs. These jobs and the wizards are all ranked similar to your system. From D rank all the way to SS rank. Now we will be focusing on a certain guild known as Fairy Tail. Here's a rundown of their adventures so far. Everyone watched in excitement as they were introduced to Fairy Tail and its members. Naruto was in awe of Natsu Dragneel's magic. Being able to actually slay dragons sounds amazing. He wished he could learn something like that. Jiraiya and most of the other males had a nosebleed when Murahin was first introduced, which led to them getting smacked by several of the females, much to Medric's amusement. They all smiled in nostalgia when they see Makarov as they are reminded of the Sandaime Hokage. Tsunade sucks in her breath when she sees Urza for the first time. She glances at Jiraiya. He and Kakashi had the same look of understanding. This girl could pass off as Kushina's daughter. Naruto tilted his head when he sees Urza. They all had a good laugh, some cheers, and even tears as they saw all the adventures that the Fairy Tail Guild. Tsunade commented at how much trouble the guild seemed to get into with everyone agreeing. Everyone had a good laugh when they see Gildritz for the first time, but cringe they see his injuries. Being a mage can be as hazardous as being a ninja, everyone mentally mused. They were all on the edge of their seats in the battle between Fairy Tail and Hades, who had enough power to be compared to a Sannin. They all cheered when Team Natsu manages to pull a win. However, everyone's happy mood dropped when Aknoloja appears. They were frightened by the incredible power that was oozing out the black dragon and the destruction he was causing. Holy shit. That thing is as dangerous as the Kyuubi, muttered Anko. Naruto flinched but did not disagree with that comparison. But for some reason, he felt a connection to Aknoloja. It was almost like he should know who the dragon was. But why he would know who this dragon was? He wondered if this was from the Kyuubi. Deep within the seal, the Kyuubi was also watching the events and even he was impressed by the power of Aknoloja. Though the Kyuubi still believes it would be the victor if it ever fought the dragon. Many did notice Wendy's odd behavior when the dragon appeared but filed that away for later. Everyone flinched as they saw Aknoloja destroy the island. Are they dead? Tsunade asked in concern. Despite only seeing them for a few minutes, she and the others grew attached to the Fairy Tail mages and hoped they were okay. Medric smiled. You're about to find out. Oh, before we really start, I want to say one thing. You may see alternate versions of people in this room do things that you do not agree with or completely out of their character. I would like to remind you these are alternative versions, so don't attack them for what their alternative selves do, understood? Everyone nodding. Medric smirked. Then let us begin RDK. Alright, everyone let's beat them. Medric paused as he felt the buzzing of his phone. 1 second, everyone. Medric picked up his phone. Yes. You need to be patient. Yes, I promise to call you when it's time. I am literally just starting. I will get to it as well, but I want to wait. I will see what I can do. Don't be so suspicious. Bye. Medric slouched on his chair after he put his phone away. Sigh. Oh boy. He exasperated. Everyone could tell the God Watcher was exhausted from the conversation he just had. Who was that? Naruto asked. Medric sighed as he looked at his audience. Oh, a colleague associate friend named Klux. A watcher such as myself. He helped discover one of the worlds that I currently have jurisdiction over. He wants to come over when I get to it. Why not start with that one then? Kiba asked in confusion. Medric shrugged. That world is closer to the one you guys came from, though with some very noticeable differences. And more importantly, RDK has more recordings for you guys to watch compared to the other worlds I have jurisdiction over. Everyone nodded as they understood the logic of his decision. That makes sense, Shikamaru replied. Medric nodded. Now then let us begin RDK. And remember my warnings, he said as everyone turned back to the projection. Aknoloja watches the scene below him in morbid fascination as Tenru Island completely vanishes thanks to his breath attack. Aknoloja was a truly terrifying beast to behold. He was around 50 meters tall. The top half of his body was covered in black armored scales. He had 4 horns protruding from the sides of his head extending backward. The front of his head was round and blunt, his eyes were wide and beady, his mouth housed razor-sharp teeth, and his chin protruded into the shape of an arrowhead. His wings were black and had a feathery appearance to them, like a bird's. His underbelly, inner tail, and legs were all a dull gray color. His tail was long and ended in the shape of sharp dual-pronged stinger. The most distinguishing feature was the blue tribal markings that covered the top half of his body. Everyone shivered as they looked at the black behemoth before them. I am still not used to seeing this thing, Kiba said as Akamaru shivered in fright with everyone else nodding in agreement. Me neither. Especially after seeing it destroy an entire island with one attack. Choji said as he and most of the other genin could not wrap their minds at how any creature could just blow up an entire island with a single attack. Naruto found it more believable as he's the vessel of a being that could easily replicate the same feat. The Jonin, Sannin, and Hokage were more believing as well as they have seen the destructive force of a Biju. The black dragon had originally come to the island, sensing the black mage, Zareth, was on it. He wanted to kill the worthless human for the sins committed against him 400 years ago. Sadly, fate was not too kind as Zareth had disappeared already, but he did get something out of this trip. He found a wizard guild on the island. And of all the guilds, it had to be the one founded by that brat Mavis. Plus he saw the human he fought a few months ago too. Now that he thinks about it, only one of Mavis's brats would have the guts to face him in mortal combat. Though fight would be the biggest understatement since it only lasted for about 3 minutes. Still, for a human to last that long, deserves some praise. It was one of the reasons he spared him and not outright killed him on the spot. Now he had several other mages to have fun with. They even had 3 dragon slayers. Well, 4 if that artificial one was included. Man, Gildertz is lucky to have survived his encounter at all, Naruto said as the others nodded. Gildertz was the ace of fairy tale and could rival the Sannin, but this dragon took him out in just a matter of minutes. Shikamaru frowned. I wonder how he got out of there in the first place. There was no way that Gildertz could have escaped in his condition. Someone must have saved or helped him. But the question was who? I am sure that will come up later. Neji reasoned as Naruto narrowed his eyes in thought. So he came to the island looking for Zareth? The blonde asked. Seems like it. Although, he was a bit late considering Zareth was already leaving by the time he arrived. Jiraiya replied. He even knew about Fairy Tail having dragon slayers, Kakashi said out loud as he wondered if that was a clue to Aknologia's identity. Do you think he has some connection to Wendy? Tenten asked as she and many others noticed her odd behavior when Aknologia came about. That might explain her odd behavior. Shizune mused. Naruto and Hinata frowned at the notion. Both were about to say something before pausing. Why was this affecting them so much? What did they feel so compelled to protect Wendy? Let's not jump to conclusions until we get all of the facts agreed. Tsunade addressed. Why, she did agree Wendy's behavior was suspicious. Based on the memories seen, she was not a malicious person in disguise. So it was best to wait until they get answers to their questions. Hi. Everyone said. Unfortunately, he soon saw that these dragon slayers were laughably weak. Compared to the slayers and mages of his age, these guys were pathetic. Then again, none of these mages ever experienced war, so it was kinda expected that none will have the capacity that the others had. Plus it looked like they were recovering from a fierce battle, but even that factor would not have changed the outcome much. However, he did get some entertainment from the master of the guild. Being able to increase his height and be able to hold him off for so long for his children to escape was an impressive feat. However, surprise, surprise, the brats ignored his plea and came back at full force, engaging Aknologia in combat. What the hell is wrong with them coming back to help their master? Naruto exclaimed as he glared at the projection of the dragon. Jiraiya put a hand on his shoulder. Easy, Naruto. We all feel the same, but there's nothing that can be done. Grrr. Fine. Naruto growled as he sat back down. The dragon had to mentally shake his head at this. Why was he not surprised? Humanity really was one stubborn species. No matter how hard you put them down, they just keep coming back up like roaches. Though he must admit these humans were entertaining him more than he had anticipated. Hell, the 3 dragon slayers managed to push him into the sea. This piqued his interest ever slightly, and he decided to test the brats and see if they would be worthy of his attention in the future. He rose from the sea and prepared to launch a breath attack upon them. The mages then began gathering their magic energy together when his attack was launched. At the last moment, a sphere appeared blocking the attack. However, the collision caused a massive explosion to erupt from the chain reaction. Damn, right, we're stubborn. We won't let monsters like you keep us down. Naruto proudly proclaimed with everyone smirking at the blonde's determination. Medric smirked and thought. Oh, the irony is gonna be overwhelming when they find out. Now as Aknologia looks at the emptiness where the island once stood, he senses a large mana signature below the surface of the sea. The dragon chuckled in amusement. So they survived, huh? Those humans are a tenacious bunch, I will give them that. Everyone released a sigh of relief they had been holding since the beginning of the recording. Oh, thank Kami, they're all alive, Tsunade said in relief. Wait, what will Aknologia do now? You don't think he'll continue his attack, right? Shizune asked as everyone stiffened at the possibility of Aknologia attacking the defenseless mages. I don't think so, Shikamaru replied. Everyone turned to the Nara heir. What makes you say that? Ino asked. Remember, he came to the island looking for Zareth, not Fairy Tail. He even admitted that he only attacked them to kill some time and have some fun. My guess is he'll leave them alone and go back to wherever his lair is. Shikamaru explained. Let's hope you're right, Choji said. He looks around, but he could no longer sense Zareth. The dragon growls at this since he was hoping to end that immortal's miserable existence for good, but it seems he was having too much fun. Oh well, it wasn't a total loss. He got to have a little fun. Something he hasn't had in a very long time. He decided it was time to leave and return to his lair on Mount Zonia. He flaps his large, black wings and sets off to the horizon. "Well, it looks like you were spot on, Shikamaru," Ino said. Shikamaru smirked. "Told you so." While he flies back home, he remembers a time when he was once human like everyone else. One that fought with the same tenacity and loyalty for his comrades. He was loud, brash, and idiotic like that fire dragon slayer. "Why it?" everyone exclaimed. "That thing used to be human before," Sakura explained in shock. "How the hell did he become a dragon?" Naruto shouted as he turned to Medric, who shrugged with a smirk. "That will be revealed in time," Medric said cryptically. "Troublesome god," Naruto grumbled before being smacked by Ino. "Don't you dare start like Shikamaru, Naruto," the platinum blonde shouted. "And don't steal my catchphrase." Quite Shika. But he was betrayed by the very people he fought for, and those he thought he could trust just left him behind as he was slowly tortured and rotted away until he was finally executed. What was his name? It had been so long that he became forgetful of his old name. He had gained so many names throughout the centuries. Acnologia, Pinslayer, the Dragon King, the Black Dragon of the Apocalypse, the Dragon Slayer King, the symbol of fear, Brackle, the Dragon, Avatar of Destruction, the Black Dragon in the Book of Apocalypse, Hiba and several others gulped in fear. "Damn, those are some evil titles to hold," the dog ninja said. "Hate to say it, but some of them do sound badass," Naruto muttered out. I wonder how he got some of them," Hinata asked. "I can tell you a bit. He earned these monikers after slaughtering over 10,000 dragons and bringing his entire species to near extinction," Medric explained. Nearly everyone's eyes widen in shock and horror. His entire race, Hinata stammered out in fear. "He nearly wiped them all out," Tsunade exclaimed. "That bastard is as bad as Itachi," Naruto growled. "Oh, and that's not the worst of it. His most infamous action was when he destroyed all life in an entire country. If everyone was shocked and horrified before then, now they were all completely ghostly pale with their pupils the size of a tiny dot." "All life," Naruto exclaimed first. "In an entire country," everyone else exclaimed. Medric nodded. "Yup. And I mean everything. Humans, animals, and plant life. The country was so badly devastated that to this day it can't sustain life. And that the most insane part? Acnologia did this with one attack and in a single night. Holy shit," the petrified audience said in unison. "No, he's worse than that, Naruto," Jiraiya stated. "He's worse than the Kyuubi," Naruto muttered. Inside the seal, the Kyuubi grumbled but reluctantly agreed. Well, he could burn a village in a matter of minutes and reduce the world to ash in a couple of days, weeks. Acnologia seems to be able to do it at a much faster pace. Adding a dragon's ability to devour elements, that makes him a foe that will not fall easily. These were all just a few of the names that he acquired in the 400 years he's been alive. But his human name? He hadn't used that in a very long time. What was it again? Ruto. Nato. Menma. Naruto. That was his name. Naruto Uzumaki, future Hokage of Konoha, believe it. He chuckles in amusement as he remembers his old catchphrase. For several minutes everyone was deathly quiet as they stared at the projection with mouths on the floor with wide eyes as their minds had frozen, unable to process what they heard. "Eh?" Naruto got out. That seemed to restart everyone's brains as they reacted to the new revelation they saw. "Nani?" everyone shouted in shock at the projection. Hell, even the Kyuubi was completely shocked and caught off guard by this new revelation. "What the fuck?" Anko exclaimed. And then Naruto as Acnologia Sakura stuttered out. That can't be true." Hinata exclaimed in denial. "What the fuck happened to me?" Naruto shouted in shock, horror, and anger. "Everyone shut up." Tsunade roared as everyone clamped their mouths shut as they turned to their Hokage. Tsunade sighed. "Look, I know that was shocking, trust me, I get it. But we won't get anywhere unless we keep watching." Everyone stayed silent before finally nodding. Tsunade turned back to their host. "Good. Medric, you may continue." That was what he used to scream at everyone. It was his idea that if he became the Hokage, then everyone will begin to look up to him. It was only when he was imprisoned that he realized how foolish that dream was. They would never accept him no matter what he did for them, they would always see him as a demon. A monster. Which was really ironic, considering what he was now. Naruto flinched at his Acnologia's thought. He always believed that by being Hokage then everyone would look up to him. That he would be recognized. That he would be admired. He would be loved. He would finally be able to experience love and people would love him. But hearing those words from himself, or rather his other self, and began to question his goal. Plus, needing to become the strongest to get everyone to see and accept you was a foolish goal. People either saw the real you from the very beginning or they saw what they wanted to see. Naruto flinched again at Acnologia's words. Was he right? Was it pointless to try and get everyone to accept him? Will the villagers always see him as the fox, no matter what he did to prove them otherwise? Was it all meaningless? "Naruto?" Jiraiya asked, but Naruto stayed quiet. "Is he right?" Have I been wasting my time for nothing? Naruto, Tsunade said with still no response. The two sat in an audience look on in concern at the normally loud blonde as he stared at the projection quietly. Sadly only one person saw him for what he truly was. A sad little boy that wanted to be accepted, to be loved. The one girl that did this for him, but he never noticed, or was it that he couldn't accept her? She was the only one to try and visit him in prison for comfort and not to scorn him. It was when she confessed her love to him that he felt truly happy in a very long time and at peace at his impending doom. They made a promise to one another on that day that they swore to honor for the rest of their lives. Despite the mood, Ino couldn't help but smirk. Oh. I sense a love story behind this. I wonder who the other Naruto is talking about. Sadly Naruto or Aknologia now had long forgotten that promise after everything he went through in his second life. He wondered how the girl's life was and if she was strong like she promised she would become. Part of him wishes he could see her again, but he had no way of going back to his old world on his own. I wonder how did this Naruto end up in Earthland? Jiraiya asked. More importantly, what happened to the rest of us? Tsunade replied. Where the hell was her other self to let Naruto turn into this? Perhaps one of the dragons would help him. However, he rid himself of that idea as quickly as it came. None of the dragons, nor any of their allies, would help him with anything he asked of them. Especially after the slaughter he caused 400 years ago. He won't deny that part of him enjoyed the death and destruction he caused, but not all of it was his fault. Naruto blinked. So he does regret some things he has done? He asked in a hopeful tone. Maybe this version of him still has some semblance of his humanity. Yes, there's a lot more to what happened that we don't know about. Hopefully, when we hear his side we get a clearer picture of what happened to this Naruto. Jiraiya explained. Naruto frowned but nodded as he knew his sensei was right. I guess. However, it was pointless to argue who's to blame and regret. He did wonder though why none of the elders or the deities of the dragon race have done anything to stop him. Perhaps going to them, he may get an answer. However, before he could allow himself to ponder any further, a flash of light appears before him, blinding his line of sight. He growls at whoever is foolish enough to surprise him. Who dares come before Aknologia, the Dragon King? Aknologia got no answer as the light got brighter before it envelops his entire form. I hope whoever did this knows what they're doing, Lee said. Let's hope we don't see someone get torn apart or vaporized by Aknologia, Neji replied with everyone else grimacing at the possibility of that occurring. When Aknologia finally regains his sight, he sees nothing but an endless, white void around him. He growls in annoyance. Who has called me here? Show yourself, you coward. Who the hell are you? You look like an overgrown lizard. Roared a voice behind him. Tsunade, Jiraiya and Kakashi froze as they recognized the voice. A voice they had not heard in over a decade. Jiraiya. That sounds like Tsunade began with a stutter. An equally shell-shocked Jiraiya nodded. I know him. But it can't be. It can't be. He repeated. Kakashi was shaking in his seat. How? She's supposed to be dead. The other Jonin were looking confused at the other three's reaction. Just who did that voice belong to? He looks behind and is shocked at who was yelling at him. The first person was a woman with a slender and feminine build. She stood at 5'4". She had blood, red hair that went down to her ankles with 2 shoulder-length bangs on each side of her face. There was one black hair clip on the left side of her head. She had violet eyes and a light skin complexion. She was wearing a high-collar white blouse under a loose-fitting green dress. She looked rather annoyed. Everyone stared at the woman before them. She was quite stunning if the blushes on most of the guys' faces were anything to go by. Who is that? Anko asked as she felt like she knew this woman but couldn't put her finger on it. Don't know but she's beautiful, Asuma said out loud, which led to him getting smacked on the back of his head, courtesy of Kurenai. Yeah, she is, Naruto said absent-mindedly. This comment caused every genin to stare at him in surprise. Naruto normally never complimented a person on their looks, especially a girl. Sakura is usually the only girl he ever compliments. So to hear him compliment a stranger was shocking to everyone. Hinata and Sakura were especially surprised as they frowned for different reasons. Hinata seeing Naruto actually paying attention to another female. While Sakura's reason was that Naruto was paying attention to someone that was not her. Naruto, meanwhile, didn't even notice the stares directed toward him. It really is her. A stunned Tsunade said as he gazed at the projection with wide eyes. Kushina. Kakashi and Jiraiya said in unison. Naruto's ears perked as he heard the name of the woman in front of him. Kushina, he muttered. He felt such warmth for saying the name, but he had no idea why. He was so focused on the feeling, he missed the growls coming from his tenant. The other was a tall tan man that stood at 5'9". He had spiky blonde hair. His eyes were a deep shade of blue. He wore a long-sleeved blue sweatshirt with 2 red swirls on the sides of his arm. On top of that, he wore a light green vest with 6 pockets on the front. The most noticeable attire he had on was the white short-sleeved cloak with the fire patterns at the bottom. The man was trying to calm the woman down. Everyone in the room froze as they recognized the man before them. How could they not? His face was on the Hokage monument. Kakashi lifted his headband to reveal his Sharingan to make sure he was not seeing things. As that Anko began. There's no way, Kiba said. But it is, Niji replied. Sensei. An emotional Kakashi muttered. Jireya's eyes became misty. Minato. The Toad Sannin said softly as he looked nostalgically at his dead student. Yondaime Hokage, Naruto said as he looked on with mixed emotions. For years he had looked up to the Yondaime Hokage. He was his hero. The man he wanted to surpass, not only as a ninja, but as a Hokage as well. But after finding out that he was the same man that sealed the Kyuubi into him, that admiration had dimmed down a bit. He still respected the man's ability and accomplishments, but there was a part of the young blonde that hated him for sealing the Kyuubi into him. The one question that was the center of this hatred and bitterness was why. Why did the Yondaime pick him of all people to hold the Kyuubi? What made him different from all the other infants he could have chosen? The third shocked him the most, and who he paid the most attention to. She was standing at 5'4". She wore a light lavender, sleeveless kimono-style blouse that was tied with a violet obi around her waist. She had short dark navy pants with thigh-high stockings, along with black high-heel boots. Her hair was a dark blue with a Heim cut at the front while reaching past her waist. She had two bangs that reached her chin. The most noticeable thing was her eyes, they were pupilless and had a hint of lavender in them. Naruto blinked in confusion. Hyuga. Is she from your clan, Hinata? Niji? He asked as he turned to the two aforementioned teens. Niji shrugged. If she is, then she is not a member I recognize. Hinata tapped her index fingers. She looks familiar. Wait, Kurenai said with narrowed eyes before they widened in shock. Is that Hinata? She exclaimed in shock. Her proclamation caused everyone to look at the girl again before their eyes widened in recognition as well. Holy shit. It is Hinata. Kiba exclaimed in shock. Naruto was speechless. That beautiful woman was Hinata. That's what Hinata will look like when she grows up. Wow. Hinata, you look amazing. Hinata blushed a deep crimson hearing the praise her crush was giving her future self. The last occupant was a giant orange fox with 9 tails. His eyes never losing track of the dragon in front of him. Literally, everyone froze at the sight before them. For the Jonin, it was like being transported 12 years back into the past. On the night that none of them forget. The genin were completely frozen in shock as they recognized the beast very easily. Naruto exclaimed in shock. What the hell? Everyone else shouted. How is the Kyuubi alive? I thought the Yondaime killed it, Kiba exclaimed in shock. Naruto flinched at Kiba's remark. He was starting to get worried as with the Kyuubi revealed, his connection to it as its jailer may also be revealed. This made Naruto nervous as he had no idea how the others would react. Would they accept him or would they hate him as the villagers do? The thought of losing his friends caused a pit to form in his stomach. A sudden clap got Naruto's and the rest of the others' attention. Everyone turned to see Medric's frown. You will come to understand soon enough. For now, keep watching. That did nothing to ease Naruto's anxiety as he gulped it down to watch the projections. Aknologia could not believe what he was seeing. Before him were Kushina Uzumaki, Minato Namikaze, Hinata Hyuga, and the Kyuubi or Kurama as he told him before he died. The black dragon thought someone was playing some sick joke on him. Well, he was not in the mood for mind games. He opens his wings out and begins to release his magical power in his rage, which puts everyone on guard. Naruto blinked. Kurama. The Kyuubi has a name? He asked as he heard the Kyuubi growled. A name you are unworthy of saying or knowing, Ninjin. Screw you, Fox. Medric nodded. Yes. The fox does have a name. Alright, you had your fun. Now show yourself, you damn cowards. I am in no mood for your trickery, now reveal yourselves. Hey, I was talking to you, you overgrown garden lizard. Listen to me when I am talking to you, Tebane. Kushina screamed. Tebane. Naruto repeated. Are you related to her, Naruto? I don't know, he said in an unsure tone. Meanwhile, Jiraiya, Tsunade and Kakashi were looking at each other in concern. It was still too soon for Naruto to know about his heritage. This is not going to end well, Jiraiya said in a worried tone. Nope. It won't. At all. Tsunade replied. Aknologia turns to look at Kushina with an annoyed scowl appearing on his face before pointing one of his claws at her. I have nothing to say to you, woman. Go take your blonde idiot of a husband and go fuck each other's brains out till you die. Since that is all you two can do, right? Fucking and dropping dead. Everyone flinched at Aknologia's remark, though several people blushed at Aknologia's blunt words. Damn, that was harsh. You know you are harsh if Anko was the one saying it. Naruto looked at his other self in confusion. I wonder what's his problem with those two. Jiraiya, Tsunade and Kakashi narrowed their eyes at the alternative Naruto. They wondered if he knew who these two people were to him. And if he did, why was he being so cold towards them? Surely he can't hate them for what happened to them. They know his life couldn't have been easy, but surely it couldn't have been that bad, right? Medric shook his head as he heard the mental thoughts of the two Sanin and Jonin. They were in for a very rude awakening, he thought grimly. Minato's and Hinata's jaws dropped at the insult, while Kurama was doing his best to bite back the laughter that was going to erupt. That all stopped when they all felt a dark aura and turned to see that Kushina was not amused at all. In fact, she was pissed off in every sense of the word. Her hair was split into 9 tails, and her face and eyes were red like her hair. She was out for blood, and bloody hell she will get it spilled. You bastard. Let's see if you can insult me after I have you caged down. She screamed at him. Ah. Everyone said in shock. Hide everyone, the red-hot habanero has returned. Kakashi comically shouted. Suddenly several golden chains erupted from her body heading straight for him. Knowing exactly what those chains can do, Acnologia takes to the air and begins evading them as much as possible to not get captured. Your chains may be able to capture a Bijuu, but let me make some things clear. I am no lizard, I am a dragon. Second, I am no Bijuu, so those chains are nothing more than a nuisance to me. He roared at her. Wow. Is that true? Naruto shouted in shock and amazement. He could hear the Kyuubi grumbling in his head, but saved that for later. Medric nodded. Yes. The adamantine chains are a special Kekkei Genkai of the Uzumaki clan. Only select members of the clan have the potential to unlock this ability, but with them not only can these members have an incredibly versatile weapon, but as stated, even a Bijuu can be restrained by them and not be able to escape them. Naruto and the other genin looked completely amazed at the versatility of the chains, but were also surprised to hear that an Uzumaki clan existed. There is an Uzumaki clan? Naruto asked. He always wondered if he had a family since he was a child. So to hear that he had a clan, it was shocking, but made him hopeful that maybe he has some family out there. Before Tsunade or Jiraiya could say or do anything, Medric nodded. Yes, Naruto. There is, or to be more precise, there was an Uzumaki clan. I will explain the details later, but you are one of the last surviving members. The few live clan members are scattered throughout the elemental nations. So I have family out there? Naruto asked in a hopeful tone. Yes you do, but you won't learn about them until a bit later. Naruto frowned but nodded, knowing he'll get his answers eventually. Jiraiya and Tsunade looked at one another in concern. Kushina got even more annoyed, but before she could retort, however, a massive chakra pulse causes Kushina and Acnologia to pause as they both turned to see Hinata glaring at both of them with great intensity, with her Byakugan activated. Oh shit. Looks like a certain Hyuga is pissed. Anko teased. Hinata blushed a deep red. Yep. Kurenai flicked Anko's head. Anko, that's enough. Anko pouted. Aw. You're no fun, Nai-chan. Both of you, that's enough. We are in the middle of nowhere, and what do the two of you do? Acting like two children having a temper tantrum. Kushina, I know you're mad at his insults, I get that, but you need to let this go. For all we know, he could be equal to if not greater than Kurama. That's debatable, Hinata, Kurama growled. Hinata turned to glare back at Kurama in annoyance. Whatever. We need to calm down and think this through. Can we all please do that? She urged everyone. Everyone just stared at the screen in utter shock and amazement, with a certain shy Hyuga blushing in embarrassment and amazement. Hell, the Kyuubi was rubbing his eyes and ears to make sure he was not seeing or hearing things. Did she just glare at the Kyuubi? Ino said in a shocked tone. I think she did. A stunned Niji replied. Damn. Everyone said in unison, causing the Hyuga to blush. And Hinata, your older self is awesome to Bayo. Naruto said. Hinata's face was becoming quite crimson. Awesome. Was all she could stutter before she fainted. Hinata. What's wrong? Are you sick again? Medric and several others facepalm at Naruto's nativity stupidity. I'm really glad I get to this to set Naruto straight. Regardless of who he ends up with, Naruto needs to be set clear on several things. Regardless of what other people think. Medric quickly woke Hinata up so they could continue watching. No one argued with her before she turned to the dragon above them. Dragon-sama, may you please come down to talk? I promise you, we mean no harm. So can we please talk in a civilized manner and find a way out of here? Acnologia looked at the girl in wonder. This was not the same girl he had seen before his execution. Looks like she has kept her promise to me after all. He thought in amusement. Alright Hinata-chan, we will talk. Oh. So Hinata was the promised girl. Anko teased. I can't wait to hear the story behind that, Kurenai said. And did I hear him call her Hinata-chan? Ino cooed as Hinata blushed. Medric clapped his hands to get everyone's attention. Okay, easy on the teasing. We don't need her constantly fainting and waking up. Ino pouted. Okay, fine. Hinata, feeling a little unnerved by the way she was addressed, nodded. Kushina and Minato were also concerned and a little weary with how familiar this dragon seems to be with them. Dragon-sama, how did you know Hinata-sen's name? Plus how did you know that Kushina and I were married? Minato asked with a calculating gaze. You also knew what a Biju was and that Kushina's chains can affect them. How do you know so much about us, since there are no dragons in our dimension world? Kurama demanded in a suspicious tone. Something tells me this won't end well, Tenten said. I think we can all agree with that, Guy replied. Everyone turns their attention to the dragon before them. Said dragon was debating what he should say. He decided to have fun with it for a bit. Sadistic bastard, Naruto grunted. You know, you just called yourself a bastard, right? Kiba asked. Shut it, Kiba. The reason I know so much is that I was once a resident of your world. This surprised everyone since they would have heard something of a black dragon roaming around the elemental nations. How? There were no dragons in our world as far as I know. Are there? Minato asked as Kurama and Hinata shook their heads. Are there? Naruto asked. Jiraiya shrugged. None that we know of. There could be a summoning contract, but we have never heard of it. Maybe I should see if I can find one. Naruto thought. The reason you've never seen me is that I was once a human before I became the form you see before you now. A human you all know very well. That threw them for a loop. He was human before a human they all knew. But this left the question. What human did Kurama, Hinata, Minato, and Kushina know? The former two were feeling a pit forming in their stomach as they thought longer about what the dragon said. Acnologia looked at the girl and gave her a fanged smile that increased her anxiety tenfold. You changed a lot more than I expected, Hinata Hyuga. You are no longer that shy girl I once knew that could barely utter a complete sentence. I am feeling anxious too, Tenten said with everyone else nodding in agreement. Would this be called flirting? Sakura asked. More like teasing. Ino corrected. Definitely, teasing, Anko confirmed. Hinata took a step back, the pit she was feeling was growing even more. The same could be said for Kurama. It can't be him. Please don't let it be him. Hinata thought. Is this you? Have you become the monster that stands before me? Kurama sadly thought. Naruto blinked. Did he hear concern from the Kyuubi? For him? Shikamaru's eyes narrowed. I thought the Kyuubi was a mass of hatred, anger, and destruction. Jiraiya shook his head with a frown. It is. Remember, this is an alternative world. So that Kyuubi may be different. That's not entirely accurate, Jiraiya, Medric replied. Everyone looked at the deity with confusion and suspicion, the latter being from Jiraiya, Tsunade, and the other Jonin. What do you mean? The Toad Sannin asked. Later. Medric teased, much to their annoyance. Minato and Kushina were still unsure, but they were also feeling a pit forming for them. What is this feeling of dread that is coming over me? The two think in unison. I don't blame them. Several muttered. Hinata gulped before asking the question that will confirm this fear of hers. How do you know so much about me? How do you know I was so shy before? Acnologia tilted his head to the girl. That's kinda cute. Really, Ino? Shikamaru deadpan. The platinum blonde shrugged her shoulders. What? It's true. I know you because you promised me the day before my execution that you would change and become the strongest Kunoichi in your village. It was also when you confessed your undying love for me. Does that ring any bells? Acnologia retorted. It did ring some bells. Hinata took several steps back before covering her mouth. Her eyes wide as tears fell from them. Kurama was looking at Acnologia with both shock and sadness. And Naruto-kun? She asked. And the truth has come out. Anko says dramatically. Not funny, Anko. Several people retorted. Anko pouted. You guys are no fun. Minato and Kushina snapped their heads between the girl and the dragon. Hinata, what did you say? Minato asked. He hoped he heard wrong. His wife was also shaking, hoping this was all a nightmare. Hinata did not turn to them and instead focused on Acnologia. Are you Naruto-kun? She asked again. Acnologia simply sighed before looking at her again. Yes. I am Acnologia, the Dragon King. The Black Dragon of the Apocalypse. But when I was human, a shinobi. I was known as Naruto Uzumaki. The last Jinchuriki of Kurama, the Kyuubi no Yoko. Jinchuriki? Shikamaru asked with a frown. What's that? Kiba asked. Ichuen and Nara turned to the orange-clad ninja. Naruto, how are you connected to the Kyuubi? Naruto flinched at the question. That will be explained after this, Medric replied. Wait. You can't, Jiraiya began, but Medric's glare caused him and everyone else to freeze. I can. And I will, Jiraiya. They will learn the truth today. Many secrets will come out of these recordings. I will ensure that. Medric promised. Jiraiya gritted his teeth. At what cost? To test the bonds of your genin. If they are his friends, they will accept him no matter what. And if they don't, Tsunade and Jiraiya exploded as they glared at Medric. The deity simply shrugged his shoulders. Then they were never his friends, to begin with. As Acnologia said before. It's pointless to prove the majority wrong if a small group sees your true worth. The rest can burn for all he should care. Everyone flinched at how callously Medric sounded, while the Jonin and Sannin glared at him. That's not what Jiraiya began but was stopped as Medric raised his hand. What? That's not what Minato would have wanted. Sadly, we don't always get what we want. Now sit, Jiraiya. You as well, Tsunade. Kakashi. The three glared at Medric for several more seconds before finally relenting and sitting down as they turned their attention back to the recording. The occupants just looked at him in shock, sorrow, and horror. The latter being Minato and Kushina. Hinata took several steps before she was in front of him. She slowly puts her hand on his snout and gently rubs it. "Aw, that's kinda cute. A girl and her dragon boyfriend." Anko teased. Hinata's face was going atomic as steam blew out of her head and ears. "BBB boyfriend." Anko shrugged. "Well yeah. It's kinda obvious that you were the girl Aknologia was talking about. And from the sounds of it, he reciprocates your feelings. Congrats. Wait. Does that mean that the other Hinata like me?" Naruto shouted. "Oh, boy. I am going to have my work cut out with him." Medric thought. "Naruto-kun," she said quietly. Aknologia would never say it, but he was enjoying the girl's soft hands on him. They were so warm and comforting. It reminded him of Anna and the others. I wonder who this Anna person is. Perhaps Aknologia acquired a legion of women to adore him as he did with Hinata and has them to his beck and call. Jiraiya said with a perverted giggle. Wham! Perverted baka. An annoyed swan shouted. Medric was suppressing to laugh out loud. Oh, I can't wait until we get to Anna and Irene. They are going to freak out. He decided to play nice with her. Aknologia's body began glowing brightly, which made Hinata pause and take a step back. Everyone was shocked as he continued to shrink and his features changed until they became more human. He continued to shrink until he was about the same height as Hinata, if not slightly taller. When the light died down, the sight before them shocked them for a new loop. Where Aknologia once stood now was a man with a well-defined face and a chiseled chest littered with several scars around his torso and arms. His only form of clothing were black baggy pants and a black cloak. He had a necklace of fangs around his neck. He had spiky blonde hair like Minato's. He had slitted eyes with the deepest shade of blue that anyone had seen. The most striking feature was the 3 whisker marks on each of his cheeks. It was Naruto Uzumaki. A much older Naruto Uzumaki. Whoa. Everyone said as many of the females gained a healthy blush with Hinata having a bloody nose. Gaki. You're kinda hot. Anko said without shame. Naruto blushed in embarrassment. Anko? Kurenai chided. Anko shrugged. What you know it's true. I saw that blush, Nai-chan. Especially on the girls in Shizune. Yep. Hinata shrieked with the other girls blushing in embarrassment. Enough, Anko, Tsunade ordered which caused Anko to pout, but relented to the command. Jiraiya sniffed as he cried tears of joy. Oh, the boy is getting a harem. I am so proud, Gaki. Shut it, Iro-senin. Echiri Red Naruto shouted in embarrassment. The man looked at the girl in front of him before slowing putting a hand on her cheek. This startled the girl before she allowed the warmth of his hand to fill her. I have missed you Hinata, he said softly. Tears began to fill her eyes and Hinata soon began to cry before enveloping him in a hug. This shocked him before he reluctantly but slowly returned the hug. Naruto blinked at the reaction. Wow. He must have had a shitty time if a hug surprises him. What did you go through in this world, Naruto? Everyone else thought as they were concerned by the alternative Naruto's reaction to the alternative Hinata's embrace. Naruto-kun sob. You're back. Sob I thought sob I would never see you again. Sob I missed you so much. Naruto simply hugged the girl and let her vent it all out. He wanted to enjoy this reunion. Because for the first time in a long time he was content and happy. Medric sighed as he paused a projection before the next recording could start. Now then, it's time you guys get some answers. Everyone turned their attention to the deity in the room, some with anxiety, others with fear, and a select few with anger. Now then this story begins around 13 years ago. When the Kyuubi appeared in the middle of your village. Now then you have been led to believe that the Kyuubi suddenly appeared on the night of October 10. No one knew why it came, but it brought devastation and death to your village. That was until the Yondaime Hokage appeared and found a way to defeat and kill the demon fox, but at the cost of his own life. That is the story that you all know, right? Medric asked at the end of his explanation. All of the rookies, except Naruto, nodded as that was the story they were told in the academy and by their families. The Jonin and Sannin all looked at one another in concern as they were unsure how the Genin and Chunin would take the truth of that night. Naruto gritted his teeth as he heard Kurama's dark chuckles. I wonder how they take the truth, Ninjin. Let's see how many friends you have left after this. Be quiet. Naruto roared back mentally, but all he got in response was his tenant chuckling even more in dark amusement. Medric sighed as he knew this was gonna be the start of a very long talk and possible tangent, but this needed to be said. However, this story that you have been told all your lives is a lie. Medric emphasized. The rookies' eyes widened as for the most part. They knew something was off with what they were told and when they saw the Kyuubi in the projection. Shikamaru's eyes narrowed as there seems to be a major cover-up on the events of the Kyuubi attack. Jiraiya's and Tsunade's reaction proved that much. However, he also noticed that the other Jonin were rather tense, meaning they were in on the conspiracy. The big question in his and nearly every other genin's mind. Where did Naruto fit in all of this? Now then, I would like that you do not interrupt me until I have said everything I have to say. Are we understood? Medric asked in a serious tone. He preferred to get through this without too many interruptions. And he expected to get some interruptions, but he preferred if they were kept to a minimum. Everyone nodded. The Watcher smiled. Good. Now 13 years ago, Kushina was going to labor to give birth to her son, while her husband, the Yondaime, tried to maintain the seal of the Kyuubi intact. Medric raised his hand as he already expected reactions to that tidbit. The reason that Kushina had the Kyuubi sealed inside of her was that she was the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. He saw their confused looks and elaborated. Jinchuriki are people who have one of the 9 Bijuu sealed within them. They are the village's ultimate weapons and used to keep the others at bay. However, the Jinchuriki are usually mistreated and have a rather depressing childhood as they are despised by their villages and seen as the Bijuu itself and not their vessels. This can lead to the Jinchuriki being rather unstable. Even if the Jinchuriki were to die, the Bijuu will eventually reform as they are constructs of sentient chakra. Most of the genin's eyes widen in shock and horror. The idea of being forced to live with a Bijuu with your entire village hating you for all your life. Who could handle such a harsh burden as carrying a Bijuu? Shikamaru's, Niji's, and Shino's narrowed as they quickly began to piece the truth in their heads. Naruto flinched from Medric's harsh but truthful words about the life of a Jinchuriki. However, he thought of how similar he looked to the Yondaime Hokage and Kushina. She was the Jinchuriki before him and she even had a similar verbal tick to him. A pit began to form in his stomach at where his train of thought was taking him, but he had to immediately stomp it down as he couldn't accept what those thoughts entailed. Inside the seal, Kurama had to chuckle in dark amusement. It seems that his vessel was figuring out the truth, but he refuses to accept it. Oh well, once the deity reveals it, he wonders how he would take it. He'll just have to sit and watch for now. And they said that the boy was a dope. Kurama thought cynically. Truly humans were very blind. The truth of the matter is that you have all met a Jinchuriki before. But when? Kiba demanded. How could any of them have missed a Jinchuriki running around? Remember Gaara? He was the Jinchuriki to Shukaku, the one-tailed sand tanuki. Everyone paled as they damn well remembered the Ginger Sand Shinobi. Hinata, Kiba, and Shino shivered as they remembered his brutality not only to the 3-Rain Ninja, but also what he did to Lee. The reason he was so unstable was due to all the attempts at his life when he was younger and the fact that his seal was faulty, which allowed Shukaku to influence him more and cause him to be even more unstable and be incapable of going to sleep. If he ever did, then Shukaku would be able to take control. All of the Genin Chunin, except Naruto, paled as the thought of ever facing a Bijuu, regardless of their numbers, was downright terrifying. Lee was thanking every deity he could think of that he did not have to face the Bijuu when he faced Gaara. The only one that was calm was Naruto as he already knew this from Gaara and he fought the damn Bijuu. If it wasn't for the Chief Toad and the Kyuubi's chakra, as much as he hates to admit it, he would be dead. The Jonin and Sannin stayed silent as they were well aware of all these facts. Though most of them did not know the truth about Gaara until after the invasion, which made them all thankful that Gaara never lost control inside of the village during the invasion. That would have been a disaster. They knew that Naruto was the one to stop Gaara, but they decided to keep quiet on the incident unless it was brought up in the projections. Medric sighed as he spoke again. Back on track, Kushina gave birth to a healthy baby boy. It was a time of celebration, but it was sadly cut short. Everyone felt a chill go down their spines. The masked man attacked and held the newborn hostage. Minato was able to save the child, but Kushina was abducted. The masked man would later use his Sharingan, cue gasps of surprise and outrage, to take control of Kurama and rip him out of Kushina. Medric sighed. Though Kushina miraculously managed to survive, which is an impressive feat in itself, he explained in an impressed proud tone. The rookies looked at their host in confusion. Why is that? Naruto asked. Medric shrugged. Simply because when one has their Bijuu ripped out, they die. He bluntly stated. All of the teens went pale white. What? All of them shouted in shock horror. Medric nodded. Having your Bijuu ripped out is a death sentence. No one has ever survived a forced extraction before this. Everyone turned to the Jonin and Sannin as they all nodded in unison. He's not lying. In all the times that a Bijuu has been forcibly extracted, death has followed. Jiraiya explained. Medric took over. So you can imagine the strength that Kushina had to endure childbirth and a forced Bijuu extraction and still be alive after all that. All of the Kunoichis felt their respect for Kushina rise. The masked Uchiha tried to kill Kushina with a fox, but Minato managed to save her at the last minute and take her to be with their child. While this occurred, the masked man unleashed the fox onto the village of Konoha. The Genin and Chunin stood silently as they ingested what they just heard. Everything they had been told all their lives about the Kyuubi and the Yondaime had been fabricated through the use of lies and half-truths. Kyuubi had been in Konoha for more than a decade, the irony being he has been there longer. So that's what really happened? Niji asked. Medric nodded. Yes, that's what happened. The Kyuubi was being controlled. He never wanted to attack the village. Naruto said aloud. A few of the Jonin and Sannin wanted to say something but decided best to keep quiet. I would still burn your village for imprisoning me for several decades and using me like some tool for you ninjas fucking wars. Naruto flinched and while part of him wanted to shout at the fox, a part of him couldn't help but agree with the fox's words. No one would like being caged up and being told what to do by the jailer. Treating the tenant like a slave. Just like what he had done for Kyuubi. How many times has the fox helped him when he was in dire situations? And he never showed the fox any gratitude. Sure, the Kyuubi was always threatening to kill him and or take over his body, but all Naruto did was scream at him and treat him like an annoyance. Like a monster. Just like the village did to him. Naruto frowned at his thoughts. He wondered if this is how all the Biju felt. Did they feel resentment for the Jinchuriki and the world just like their jailers cursed them for the lives they were forced to live? Naruto was cut from his musing when Medric resumed talking. Minato would later fight the masked Uchiha and free the fox from his control. However, the Kyuubi was still rather enraged and continued his onslaught in the village. That was until Minato appeared and teleported the fox out of the village and near his home. Kushina quickly bound the fox in her chakra chains. Medric sighed, knowing the bomb he was going to drop would be explosive. The Yondaime knew they had to seal the fox again, but Kushina was in no condition to have the fox resealed into her. So the two made the heavy choice of sealing it into their son. That son was Naruto. All of the rookies gasped as their jaws dropped to the floor. The Jonin were no different as they all looked like gaping fish. Jiraiya, Tsunade, Kakashi clenched their jaws as the secret was out. But they all had the same train of thought. How would Naruto react? Naruto's reaction was a lot more vocal than the rest. No. That's a lie. Naruto shouted. Everyone was brought back to reality as turned to Naruto but flinched at what they saw. His eyes were a deep blood red with slits. His teeth and nails had grown sharp. His whisker marks had become more defined and feral looking. The most noticeable change. The tear tracks coming down his cheeks. It can't be true. He can't be father. You're lying. Naruto shouted to the deity as everyone else flinched at the volume of Naruto's voice and the sorrow laced within the shout. Medric looked sympathetically to the blonde. It's not a lie. He calmly replied. Yes, it is. There's no way that the man who is loved by everyone in my village is my father. The single most hated person in Konoha. Naruto, enough. Medric roared as he silenced the blonde and his audience into quiet shock. He sighed as he rose from his chair. He knew this was the reaction he would get. But he couldn't let Naruto go off the rails right now. He needed to get him and the audience to focus because it will only get tougher after this. Especially when he finds out what happened to RDK Naruto and the sins he had committed. He walked over and kneed in front of Naruto as he placed both of his hands on his shoulder. I am not lying to you, Naruto. Medric calmly began. You know I am telling you the truth. You should have noticed the resemblance you had between yourself with Minato and Kushina. More importantly, I know you were beginning to reach that conclusion, but you denied it. Naruto shook his head as he couldn't believe what he was hearing. I know this is hard, but you must accept this. You're Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Son of the Yondaime Hokage, Minato Namikaze, and Kushina Uzumaki and the third Jinchuriki of Kurama the Kyuubi no Yoko. Naruto just looked on in shock with the rest of the genin in a similar position. However, one frowned as his face was covered in shadow. Asuma-sensei. The Chunin spoke. Asuma twitched as he heard his student calling him. Shikamaru. Did all of you know that Naruto was the son of the Yondaime and the Kyuubi Jinchuriki? The other Jonin looked at one another in concern before Asuma addressed his student again. We all knew that he was the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, but not about him being the Yondaime's son. Silence enveloped the room for a solid minute as the other genin had their heads down as well. Before Shikamaru spoke again. Tell me this, how did the village learn he was a Jinchuriki? Again the Jonin were getting very concerned with their student's reaction, but Asuma pressed on and answered. Someone had leaked that information and my dad was forced to confirm it. He hoped that the people would see Naruto as a hero, but that was sadly not what happened. The people wanted him executed on the spot, but the Sandaime warned that anyone that tries would be executed and made it an S-rank law that no one could indulge in that Naruto was the Jinchuriki. However, while they couldn't kill him, they told all of their families and friends to ignore, shun, and hate Naruto. The genin turned to the Jonin, and they all had to stop themselves from flinching. The genin did not say anything, but their faces told 1,000 words a second. They were in disbelief, betrayed, hurt, ashamed, and angered. They were furious at the Jonin and Sannin. They knew that they and the majority of the Leaf Village had lost a great deal of respect from their students and it will be some time before they ever regain it again. You knew, Naruto spoke quietly but loud enough for everyone else to hear. What? A few of them asked. You three knew who my parents were, right? Kakashi. Jiraiya. Tsunade. Naruto asked with an undertone growl. Jiraiya and Tsunade looked at one another. Both knew they could not deny this or Naruto will never trust anything they say ever again. Yes. The two said in unison. And you said nothing to me. Naruto literally screamed at the end as several people flinched. Naruto Jiraiya began as Naruto whirled to glare at the two of them as he covered in a crimson-orange chakra aura as his features went feral again. Only there were no tears. Just pure anger and it scared all the Genin Chunin in the audience. Naruto nothing. He roared. I had a right to know about my parents. Do you have any idea what it's like to constantly think that your parents abandoned you? That they saw you as nothing more than a monster? Naruto, we couldn't risk that. Your parents had too many enemies. You would. Tsunade began to protest, but Naruto cut him off. Don't give me that bullshit. When I found out about the Kyuubi, I never opened my mouth. You bastards did it out of convenience. Look Naruto, I know you're angry, but we were going to tell you eventually, Jiraiya replied in a diplomatic tone. Is that so? Medric asked as the two Sannin and Kakashi glared at him. Yes, we would have. Medric raised an eyebrow at them, though his mask made it difficult to see. Really? When exactly would you have told him? When he would return from the training trip you planned? When he turned 17? 18? 21? When he was made Chunin or Jonin? When he was married? Or when he was old and dying? When we thought he was ready, Jiraiya replied as Medric rose to his feet as his eyes glowed red as a dark aura covered his entire body, scaring everyone in the room, even Naruto in his rage-filled state shivered as the sight. Medric growled as that was the same thing said in numerous worlds in the multiverse and the canon verse as well. And this pissed Medric more because he was tired of hearing that bullshit excuse. And who the hell do you think you are to deny a child something that he has been begging to know since he could speak and understand words? You had no right to deny him that knowledge. You are a disappointment to Minato's and Kushina's memory. Especially you, Tsunade. Not to mention that Hashirama and Mito Uzumaki would be ashamed to even be related to you. Tsunade's entire body went rigid until her brain processed what Medric just said. She glared hotly at the deity. How dare you? She roared as she lunged at Medric with her fist cocked back as she channeled the appendage with chakra and launched her fist. Boom. However, all that happened was Medric catching the fist with his finger. She looked shocked before she glared in anger at the deity. Don't you dare bring my grandparents into this. Medric snapped his fingers as Tsunade was teleported back to her chair. I can and will bring it up if it means cracking that thick skull of yours, Tsunade. Especially considering your grandmother was also the Jinchuriki to the Kyuubi. What? Several people exclaimed. Tsunade's grandmother was also the Jinchuriki to the fox, Naruto shouted in shock as his features had returned to normal. Medric nodded. Yes. Mito Uzumaki was the first Jinchuriki to the Kyuubi. Kushina was the second and Naruto is the third and current one. Naruto looked shocked before he turned and glared at Tsunade. And did you plan to tell me that or the fact that we are from the same clan? Better yet, why the hell was the Uzumaki clan never mentioned in any of the lectures in the academy? He demanded. The rookies frowned at Naruto's words. Why weren't they ever told of the Uzumaki? All of their clans were mentioned in their history classes, especially the Uchiha and the Senju clans. So why was the Uzumaki clan never mentioned? The Sandaime felt it was best to keep that information off the records until he decided Naruto was ready to learn about it, Jiraiya replied. And now he ends up dead and keeping his secrets to his grave. How convenient. Medric scoffed, which earned him glares from the Sannin and Jonin. Don't you dare insult the Sandaime. They shouted in unison. They turned to their students for support but were shocked to see them all silent. Had they become so distrustful of them and the Sandaime? None of the rookies were sure what to say as what Medric said was true. It felt convenient that he said nothing to Naruto before he died. You keep on saying that Naruto was too immature or his parents had too many enemies. Those are the excuses you kept giving. Convenient excuses. He raised one finger. One Naruto has been alone for nearly all his life and raised himself, of course, he won't be like the others in terms of maturity. And considering the shit he had to live with, he ended as best as could be expected. He raises another finger. 2. You keep saying enemies on the outside, but you have forgotten that Kushina and Minato had enemies inside the village as well. Medric glared at the two Sannin, and 3. You did it because you and the Sandaime were afraid of him. No, we weren't. The Sannin and Kakashi exclaimed in unison. Yes, you were. Medric exclaimed back. You were scared that when Naruto found out the truth he would go ballistic and destroy the village. That's why you told him nothing and did not want to. You 3 were all scared and decided it was best if he knew nothing. Admitted. The aforementioned ninja stayed silent as they glared at the deity with everyone else watching on in silence. The other Jonin were unsure what to think as they understood why they did it, but many couldn't help but agree with Medric's words that it seemed they just didn't want to risk losing him. The Gen and Chunin were more angered and disgusted by what they were hearing. It was just like Medric said. All they were hearing were excuses and not legitimate reasons for not telling Naruto everything. Especially since he was told about the fox, but kept it a secret until now. The respect they held for these individuals had greatly dimmed down due to these revelations. Naruto was still glaring hatefully at them with eyes filled with hurt and betrayal. Hinata was looking rather emotional as she looked at her crush's state, wishing she could do something to help him. Denton's respect for Tsunade had gone down greatly as the woman she admired kept secrets about one of her friends and refused to admit that she was wrong to do so. Neji was thinking back to what he said to Naruto during their match in the Chunin exams and wanted to punch himself. Naruto understood pain better than anyone here, it was he who did not. Shino was questioning the logic of not telling Naruto anything and thinking that he would be fine without that knowledge. Medric turned to the members of the Rookie 12. Now then, I have a question for all of the Genin. The aforementioned group turned to their host. Now that you know Naruto's dark secret, what do you think of him? Naruto hung his head as he prepared himself to possibly lose all of the friends he's made so far. Nothing, Shikamaru replied. Naruto snapped his head up. What? He asked. Shikamaru continued. Nothing has changed. Naruto is still the same annoying guy we knew. He's our comrade. Nothing more and nothing less. A fox in his gut won't change that. Shino pushed his shades up. That's correct. It would be most illogical to confuse Naruto and a giant construct of chakra, even if it lives in his gut. Naruto's flames of youth still burn brightly. Guess who? There's still one of us, Naruto, Ino said. Yeah, the same hyper goofball we all know, Kiba said. Hey. The blonde protested. Naruto. The blonde Jinchuriki turned to his pink-haired teammate. Sakura-chan. We've been through a lot as teammates, so I can say with certainty that you are no demon. You're a teammate and my friend, she said honestly. Naruto's eyes sparkled to hear that from his longtime crush. Naruto-kun. A voice spoke. Naruto turned into his indigo-haired friend. Hinata. Despite being the Kyuubi Jinchuriki and the hatred of the village, you never let that get you down. You faced those hardships head-on and never gave up on your beliefs. That is what I admire most about you, Naruto. It's your indomitable will that no one can take from you. That's what makes you special. Not being the Kyuubi Jinchuriki or the son of the Yondaime. It's your heart. Hinata passionately said. Naruto and the others looked at the shy Hyuga in awe. This was the first time most of them heard her speak so much. For Naruto, this reminded him of his jitters before his match with Neji. He was feeling rather down and unsure that he would win. But Hinata managed to cheer him up and inspire him that he could win this match. And now she found a way to lift his spirits again. Hinata, thank you, he said in a grateful tone. Hinata gave a smile in return. Always, Naruto-kun. Naruto then turned to the rest of the rookies. Thanks, everyone. As they all nodded with smile smirks. Naruto felt a tap on his shoulder and glanced back to see Medric looking at him. Feeling better, Naruto? Naruto nodded slowly. Somewhat. He began. It's still a lot to process, but now I know the truth. My parents never abandoned me. They really loved me. Everything would have been fine if that bastard did not intervene. Though why did I only get half of the fox? He asked in confusion. Why did his father go through all that trouble to split the fox into 2 parts? Medric shrugged. Honestly, the only reason you only got half was due to the fact you were just born. If you had been a bit older, you would have gotten the full Kyuubi. Not to mention you would have gotten the fox even if the attack never happened. Naruto's eyes narrowed in suspicion. Why? Simply put, you were the only available Uzumaki. Only someone from your clan can hold the Kyuubi. Not to mention as you developed in your mother's womb, you were exposed to the fox's chakra. That's the reason why you have such high chakra reserves even for Uzumaki standards and why you have those whisker marks. You would have gotten the fox, you just would have been older and had your parents perform the process. Naruto nodded as that made a lot of sense. He always wondered why he had those whisker marks. Medric clapped his hands as he turned his attention to everyone. Now then everyone, it's time to get back to watching the projections. Everyone blinked. That's right, they were supposed to be watching alternative worlds. Wow, I kinda forgot about them, Naruto said honestly. Me too. Same here. Medric waved his hands. Yes. Yes. Now everyone get to your seats. Once everyone was back in their seats, Medric spoke again. Now I want to warn you all that this chapter may reveal some dark information that you all may not like to hear. Everyone got rather nervous at Medric's tone. What do you mean exactly? Snap. Medric snapped his fingers as buckets appeared near each ninja. One for each of them. What are these for? Naruto asked. Call it insurance. Naruto, be prepared because you may not like how Aknologia reacts. In fact, you might actually hate it. Medric warned. Naruto gulped before nodding. Everyone became rather tense as they were unsure what to expect next. Vedrick sat down. Now then, let us continue. Naruto held on to Hinata for what seemed like hours, but he didn't mind at all. He wanted to let the girl vent out all her pent-up emotions for him. Plus, he enjoyed the warmth coming off of her, it was really intoxicating. Both Hinata and Naruto blushed at Aknologia's thoughts. They had kinda forgotten that their alternative selves were a couple. This made things rather embarrassing. Even worse when they heard all the cooing and chuckles from everyone around them. It was like sitting next to a huge fireplace. It was warm and comforting. It was really an amazing feeling. And her scent. Kami, her scent was something else. It reminded him of lavender mixed with honey. The two were melded together so perfectly that his nose felt like it was in paradise. If Hinata and Naruto were blushing before, now they had gone completely red in the face. Naruto was red due to embarrassment at his other self's words. Hinata was embarrassed, happy that Aknologia hugged his Hinata and wondered if her Naruto would feel similarly someday. Naruto flinched when he felt glares directed towards him. He slowly turned to see Kurenai and Neji glaring down at him coldly. He quickly turned around to look back at the projections. That's scary. Seriously, how more desirable could this girl get for him? She was perfect in every sense of the word. Beautiful inside and out, strong-willed, and without a hint of malice to her unless you're her enemy. She was a goddess, plain and simple. Just like Anna and Irene were his goddesses once upon a time. Returning from his daydreams, he looks down to see that the girl's crying had diminished to soft sobbing, but he can hear her say something, but it was too muffled to understand a word. Literal steam was coming out of Hinata's head. A goddess. Aknologia thinks of his Hinata as a goddess. Naruto was steaming at the idea of Hinata being his goddess. I wonder who Anna and Irene are and what was their relationship with his other self. Oh, Naruto. I didn't think you could be romantic like that, Naruto. Shut up, Ino. Naruto stuttered out. Looking at the other occupants, he sees Kurama watching the scene with an amused expression on his face. Naruto had to fight the urge to roll his eyes. He hadn't changed at all. He was still the same smug, sneaky bastard he remembered. Naruto blinked. Why did the other Kyuubi seem so happy to see Aknologia again? Were they actually friends in that world? Kurama stayed silent in the seal as he watched the projection with interest. He turned to the other two occupants and saw his parents watching the scene in shock. His mother was shaking while covering her mouth with her hands, while his father was just too shocked to say or do anything. So he does know, but it doesn't sound like he's attached to them, Naruto said out loud. Tsunade, Jiraiya and Kakashi looked at one another in concern. He decided he needed to address the other occupants, so he looked down at the girl before cupping her face with his hands and bringing it up so she was looking right at Naruto. The two stared at one another for some time before he spoke. Hinata. Yes, Naruto-kun. She asked softly. While this reunion is heartwarming and very welcomed, we need to figure out how we came here. Hinata nodded. Naruto used his thumbs to wipe the last of the tears in her eyes before walking toward the other three, with Hinata close behind. Naruto walks towards the other occupants at a leisurely pace. Awa. Several of the girls and guys cooed at the scene. Hinata looked very close to fainting. Naruto hid his face in his hands. Someone end this, please. He mentally begged. Sadly, no one answered his pleas. Meanwhile, Minato and Kushina were a nervous wreck. They had no idea how they came here. 1 minute they were in the afterlife and then there was a flash of light and they were here in this white void with Hinata and the Kyuubi. They were about to accuse the Kyuubi of being the cause, but Hinata quickly diffused the potential fight that was about to erupt between the two sides as she quickly explained that the Kyuubi had nothing to do with them being teleported here. Then the black dragon suddenly appears and the pair finds out that it's their son. How? How did their son become a dragon? The better question is what happened to him and what's his relationship with Hinata. Not to mention, why did they feel like their son hated them? That left a cold pit in their stomachs at the thought. Just what happened to their son? A lot, apparently, Shikamaru muttered with everyone that heard him nodding in agreement. As the aforementioned boy no man approached, they wondered what he would say or do to them. Will he hug or attack them? However, Naruto did neither of the two. Naruto just walks right past them and not even acknowledging them and continues until he is right below the Kyuubi. Everyone flinched at Aknologia ignoring his parents. Damn, that's cold, Kiba remarked. The two Sannin and Kakashi narrowed their eyes. It's good to see you, Kurama. It has been a very long time. Kurama smiles. Yes, I guess for you it has been a long time. For me, it's been 8 to 9 years. Still, I'm glad to see your ugly mug again, Kit. Naruto blinked in confusion. Aren't those baby foxes or something? Shikamaru asked aloud. Kiba nodded in confirmation. Aknologia is close to his Kyuubi, Naruto remarked. HMPH. Kurama stayed silent as he continued to watch. I see death has not changed your smart mouth, you Baka Kitsune. But I still missed you. Kurama snorted. Please, compared to your vixen, our reunion isn't that great. Oh, by the way, how did your vixen feel? You got an up-close experience with her assets. How was it? Most of the genin blushed at the Kyuubi's question, while the Jonin and Sanin watched with wide eyes. No one ever expected the Kyuubi of all beings to say something like that. Anko was just grinning ear to ear, while Kurenai looked furious. Hinata was blushing madly at the question that the Kyuubi asked Naruto. Naruto's answer just made it worse. They were soft, warm, and comforting. Overall best feeling I've had in a long time. Hinata was by this point reaching atomic levels of red before covering her face with her hands as steam blew out of her head. Boink. Ow. What the hell, Sakura? Naruto exclaimed in annoyance. Sakura glared at him. That's for being a pervert, Naruto. Naruto looked incredulous at her. What the actual fuck? In case you've forgotten, that was the other me. Easy Nai-chan, our Naruto had nothing to do with the other one. Not to mention. Those two seem to be a couple in that world. Anko soothed her longtime friend. He's still a pervert. Kurenai huffed. Kurama snorted before he began laughing like a maniac. His laughter echoing throughout the void. Ahahahaha. Aw man, I really do miss these conversations with your kid. You always made them entertaining. Never a dull moment with you. Naruto smirked. I wouldn't be me if I wasn't unpredictable. Huh. I really am close to the fox in this world. Naruto commented. I can't wait till we get to Neo Yuzu. Oh, that's going to be fun. Medric thought in amusement. For some reason, both Naruto and Kurama felt a chill go down their spines, but they did not know why. Kurama then shifted to a serious expression before looking at Minato and Kushina, then looking back down at Naruto. Aside from the fun and games, Naruto. I think you have to settle some things, and this is as good as time as any. Naruto sighed. He knew he was right. He couldn't avoid this, no matter how much he wanted to. It was time to bury this part of his past for good. He nodded before turning around and walking to the two sources of his past. His parents. I have a bad feeling about this, Naruto said. So do we. Nearly everyone else replied. The same ones that decided it was a smart idea to seal the Kurama in him and leave him with the most irresponsible adults to watch over him and a village that wanted his blood. Blood that they kept trying to take for nearly 13 years. Many times they nearly succeeded, but Kurama healed him from his near-death beatings. What? Everyone shouted in shock and horror. Medric sighed. Here we go. Naruto, were you beat by the villagers? Tsunade asked slowly while keeping her anger in check. If the villagers think they could get away with beating a child, they would be reminded of who they're messing with. Naruto flinched as he felt the undertone anger coming from Tsunade. No, they never went that far. The worst I ever got was some stuff thrown at me and my house getting vandalized once or twice. It never got that bad. Tsunade and Jiraiya made a mental note to find out who vandalized his home and give them the appropriate punishment. Everyone turned when they saw their host sigh. Sadly, Naruto, your life in the multiverse can be seen as a pendulum. One side represents a good, happy childhood, and the other is the bad one. Sadly, Acnologia is on the near end of the bad spectrum. Medric explained before giving his audience a grave look. And it will only get worse, he warned. Everyone gulped as turned back as the projection. Then there was also the Sandaime Hokage, who did jack shit when it came to helping him. All he did was send the mobs that hunted him to INT, but they always got out and came right back to hunting him. All because the useless old man could do nothing against the civilian and shinobi councils. The clan heads were also just as useless. Don't even get him started on Kakashi, Jiraiya, and Tsunade. The less said, the better. He stops his train of thought as he was about a meter away from them before standing still. He continues to look at them with the blankest expression any human being or dragon could produce. He almost looked like a statue, which worried Minato and Kushina even more. Kakashi, Jiraiya, Tsunade flinched and wondered how badly did their alternative selves screw up with RDK Naruto. That's an unnerving look to see on Naruto's face, Ino said. I never thought Naruto could ever make a face like that, Choji replied. You won't hear any argument from me, Naruto remarked to the two. Hello, Minato, Kushina. You look healthy for two dead people. The aforementioned duo flinched at the dull, bland tone in their son's voice. Everyone flinched at RDK Naruto's tone. Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Kakashi were getting concerned with the other Naruto's tone towards his parents. Minato gulped before looking at Naruto's blank, cold eyes. Then Naruto, do you know who we are? How would I not know the great Yondaime Hokage? The great slayer of the Kyuubi and the savior of Konoha. Then we have his wife, Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze. You are like gods to the people of Konoha. Why wouldn't I know who you are? Naruto spoke blankly. Naruto, I know what you meant, Yondaime. Naruto cuts him off before he continues. So, you know. That you are the parents that ruined my life and left me for dead in Konoha. Yes, I know exactly who you two are. The two flinched at his cold tone, but they were confused by what he said. Oh, that's not a good sign, Anko said as they could all feel the tension rising. Red flag alert? Naruto asked. I am pretty sure we're at Crimson by now, Ino replied. Definitely Crimson, Shikamaru confirmed. Naruto, what do you mean we ruined your life? I mean I know having the Kyuubi and you may have been bad, but you had Sarutobi, Kakashi, Jiraiya, who we named as your godfather, and the good people of Konoha to look after you. Minato smiled wondering what he learned from everyone. Don't forget about Tsunade Tebain, Kushina exclaims. Oh shit. Nearly everyone said aloud. And now this shitstorm is about to begin to pour down, Medric replied quietly. What? Naruto exclaimed as he turned to Jiraiya in anger. You're my godfather. Jiraiya stayed silent as Medric decided to answer. Yes, he is. You see when Minato and Kushina were deciding your name, they chose the name of the main character of the first book that Jiraiya published. Isn't that right, Jiraiya? The Toad Sage glared at the deity before looking back at his student. Yes. Naruto looked even more enraged. You bastard. Where the fuck were you for 12 fucking years? Naruto. That's enough, Tsunade began before Naruto rounded to her and pointed at her with a vicious glare. Stay out of this, Tsunade. This is between him and me. Tsunade was stunned as Naruto never spoke to her like that. Well, I am waiting for an answer. Naruto demanded from his now revealed godfather. Look, I couldn't look after you alright. I had my spy network to look after, and there was also the Akatsuki and Orochimaru to keep track of. Those are just excuses. I know it's now what you want to hear but what, Jiraiya? Medric asked. Jiraiya glared at him. Stay out of this. Medric tilted his head in confusion. Excuse me? What have I done wrong? I am merely stating the truth and facts. Truths he did not need to learn yet. That was not your decision to make. You abandoned me. Naruto roared. Jiraiya flinched at Naruto's accusation. That's not true. I provided for you. Who do you think paid for all your expenses to get you into the academy and that apartment? Naruto scoffed. That hardly replaces actually raising him, Jiraiya, Medric said. Stay out of this. Jiraiya shouted at the god. Medric felt a vein pop on his forehead from annoyance. No, I won't. I am going to make up for the fact that you screwed up, whether you like it or not. First off, well, your job did make it difficult, you could have found workarounds. You could have sent him letters through your messenger toads. At least then he would know of your existence and have a beginning relationship with the toads. He could have learned to better control his chakra, learned useful jutsus, and learned about Fuinjutsu from books you could have sent him. But no, you took the easy way out. Easy, Jiraiya exploded. What do you know about how I felt? I know you abandoned Naruto and only came back when Orochimaru was involved. Yet all you've so far taught him was summoning and the Rasengan. And I use the term teach very loosely. Medric explained. What are you trying to say? The Watcher shrugged. You're a lousy teacher. I am not. I taught Minato. Medric facepalmed and sighed as he dragged his hand down. And that is your issue right there. Naruto is not Minato. He is Minato's son, something you and the rest cannot seem to get when you teach him the same way you taught Minato. That won't work for Naruto, especially since besides Iruka, he did not have anyone that gave a damn to try to help him, but he could not care about getting help by that point. He is not a child. He should just act like a shinobi. Not someone that needs to hold his hand all of the damn time. And that is why you failed not only as a godfather, but as a teacher as well. A godfather is supposed to guide and raise the child under their protection. Not leave them to their own devices and tell them to act like an adult. A good teacher could tell you that's one of the worst ways to teach a student. That is straight up neglect. You're not the one to decide that. Medric sighed as nothing he says will get through to him right now. Let's get back to the viewing. However, their cheerful mood drops when they feel an immense Kai aimed at them. They look to see Naruto glaring venomously at them. The whites of his eyes glowed, giving him a very eerie look. Kurama and Hinata flinched knowing the bomb those two set off. Naruto continued to glare for a good while before he spoke in a cold whisper. Not that bad. Looked after. Good people of Konoha. His voice was growing much angrier and louder. You stupid, naive, idealistic, idiots. At this point, his voice was raised higher. He was now screaming at them. Everyone flinched. Ouch. And here comes the rage-filled rant. Medric proclaimed. Oh boy. Everyone said. You have the nerve to say to my face while smiling no else. What fucking village were you living in? And to answer your question, no. I was not well looked after. The moment after you sealed Kurama within me, I had people screaming for my death. Jiraiya, Kakashi, and Tsunade as you well put it did nothing for me. The Sandaime was even worse. He gave into that console like a submissive bitch. I was forced to live in an orphanage till I was kicked out when I was 4. I lived on the streets for nearly 4 fucking years. I was put in an apartment building in the red light district of Konoha. Hell, the residents there treated me more human than the rest of the village. I have been beaten, tortured, stabbed, electrocuted, burned, drowned, and raped by the very people you saved. And you know what they said as they did all that to me? They said a demon like I has no right to live, that they are honoring the Yondaime by finishing his job. So you tell me, what in the fucking hell did you think you were doing when you gave me a death sentence in that village? Everyone looked as white as a ghost. What? Everyone screamed in horror. Naruto looked between pulling more or turning green at the sick thoughts of what the villagers did to RDK Naruto. He could not complete any coherent thought at what he had just heard. Edric nodded slowly. Yeah. Remember what I said about your life being a pendulum, he was on the shitter end of the stick. So they tried multiple times to kill him. Naruto gulped as he tried to finish his words, they tortured and raped him. Edric nodded slowly. Sadly yes. How could they? Hinata whispered slowly as she began to shake. But in shock or fear. But in anger. Hinata? Niji asked in concern for his cousin. Those ungrateful hypocritical sons of bitches. Hinata exclaimed in anger, which shocked everyone as they never expected her to cuss or even yell like that. Hinata. Kurenai tried to scold her for her language, but Hinata rounded to glare at her sensei with the Byakugan active. Be silent, Kurenai. The Genjutsu Jonin flinched back as she never thought Hinata would talk to her like that. They all should have been killed by the Kyuubi and burn the rest of the village if they were all okay in allowing something like that to happen to someone as innocent as a child. If you can't agree then you're different from them. Hinata, Kurenai said sadly as she was hurt by her student's words. Most of the others agreed with her words, but still too in shock to comment. How many? Naruto finally asked as he looked to Medric. Excuse me? He asked, though he had an idea of what Naruto was about to ask. How many worlds have you seen where that has happened to me? Medric looked up as he thought about his answer before looking back at Naruto. I have observed many worlds. There have been a few worlds that have suffered like RDK Naruto. One eventually became a half-demon and wanted nothing to do with the village as he left it. Another one was violated by a member of the council to see if they could create a super soldier. The other one was a victim of a serial rapist. There have been many others where those close to you have suffered that fate. There are many others you lose those loved ones because of it. Everyone stayed silent as they digested what they heard. This was not a one-time occurrence. It happened multiple times throughout the multiverse. Which meant they may see these events again. The thought alone pushed the bile up their throats as their faces paled. They commanded themselves to push it back down, though. Let's keep going, Tsunade suggested, which no one disagreed with. By the end of his rant, Naruto was panting so heavily that he was wheezing. He had been keeping all his hatred bottled up for a long time, and hearing that garbage from their mouths finally set him off, and he just let it all go. Still, it felt good to release all his pent-up rage. Plus, he took a sadistic pleasure in breaking their naive perfect views of their beloved village. He was a very fucked up individual, that's for sure. Now if they didn't believe him, he'll just kill them and find his way out of here with Hinata's and Kurama's help. Though could he kill them, since they were spirits? Maybe his magic can test out that theory. Taking souls from the living is one thing, but he's never tried it against the dead. He is cut from his train of thought when he feels a hand on his shoulder and looks over it and sees Hinata looking at him in concern. He gives her a nod to confirm that he was fine. Wait, he can kill spirits, ghosts, how? Naruto asked. He was terrified of ever facing a ghost. To hear that a solution made him feel like he found buried treasure. That's something he picked up from a certain dragon. You will learn about her at a later time. Yoeyng. A voice softly says. Naruto and Kurama with their heightened hearing picked it up immediately. Naruto sighed in annoyance before looking at the two and saw both their heads down, their bodies shaking. Excuse me? You wanna repeat what you just said, human? Naruto growled out to his human father. Hinata looks up. You're lying. There's no way that happened to you. Konoha is one of the best villages in the elemental nations. Konoha would not do those things to you. Minato yelled in denial. Kushina looked like someone whose world had been completely crushed and hoped everything she heard was a lie. That couldn't be true. The people of Konoha loved him and his wife, surely they would love their son as well. Surely they would see Naruto as their savior and protector and not the fox sealed within him. And even if they didn't, the Sandaime, Jiraiya and Kakashi would have watched over him. They promised that the boy would live to have a happy childhood and become a great ninja. The people they trusted and risked their lives for wouldn't turn their backs on them and their son so easily, right? Everyone flinched at Minato's outburst, many had never seen the Yondaime so emotional before. Jiraiya, Tsunade and Kakashi flinched the hardest at Minato's outburst and his rant about them. They knew deep down that they failed Minato and Kushina. They could have taken better care of Naruto, but they kept their distance until much later in his life. That was not what Minato and Kushina desired, but it was what they decided was the best option that the Sandaime proposed. They agreed with it, but now they are seeing the repercussions of their actions to not only Naruto, but also to Minato and Kushina. Naruto palmed his face with both hands as he was trembling in rage. He slowly takes his hands off as his parents took several steps back in fear as Hinata and Kurama got very worried. Naruto's eyes were completely white and brightly shining with a pale glow. Everyone flinched at RDK Naruto's glare and the oppressive aura they were feeling emitting from him. It was like nothing they had ever felt before. Sakura was shivering. Even Orochimaru did emit such a potent amount of Kai when her team confronted the traitorous Snake Sannin in the Forest of Death. The Jonin and Sannin flinched as they had experienced Kai before, but they shivered from Aknologia's Kai. The Genin were shivering as they were not used to feeling such an oppressive force. Kiba was shaking like he was freezing, and Akamaru had fainted after spilling his bowls. Hinata and several others were hyperventilating from the Kai. Naruto was pale as his breath became erratic. He had felt plenty of times before. The villagers, Zabuza, Orochimaru, the Kyuubi, Gaara, etc. But right, none have shit on the malevolent Kai being released by Aknologia. It resembled the Kai he felt from the Kyuubi. The same rage and anger. But it was different. It felt much more focused. However, before anyone could react, Naruto appeared in front of them looking at the two with a malicious smirk. A smirk that promised pain and suffering. Without a second to react, Naruto slammed a swift uppercut into Minato's gut. The air left the Yondame's lungs as he felt his muscles and organs twist due to the sheer force of the punch. Everyone flinches at the blow. "That's gonna leave a mark," Kiba said. "Yup." Everyone said. Naruto's smile widens as he hears the sounds of muscles and organs being twisted and squeezed to the brink of being ripped apart. It was music to the Dragon King's ears. And oh boy. Doing it to his human father, Naruto using the term very loosely, made it all the more enjoyable. Naruto flinches at Aknologia's sadistic pleasure at hitting their father. Sure, he always thought of slugging the Yondaime in the face, chest, or maybe even a blow to the nuts. But not enjoy it this much. Minato coughed out blood and spit as he flew back a few feet. He began coughing profusely as he held his stomach in pain. However, Minato had little time to contemplate his injuries as Naruto appeared right in front of him. Kushina lunged forward to try and stop Naruto, but the blonde king merely disappeared in a blur before hoisting her into the air through a vicious vice grip to the throat. "Kushina." Minato croaked. Naruto smirked as he viciously slammed her into the ground as Kushina grunted in pain. Minato tried to get up, but one swift kick from his son sent him back to the ground. Minato grunted in pain as he and Kushina looked up to see their son going through several hand gestures that resembled hand signs. Suddenly a seal appeared in each of their abdomens. What did he just do? Naruto asked in confusion. He does not recognize what his other self had done. The other genin were just as confused, though Shikamaru looked like he had an idea. The Jonin were all staring at the projection in shock. "Did that other Naruto perform a Fuinjutsu?" Tsunade asked. Jiraiya nodded. "I think he did." Minato and Kushina began panicking as they couldn't feel their chakra anymore. Hell, they couldn't move a muscle. What was happening? "What have you done to us?" Minato coughed out. Naruto smirked. "I just added a seal that seals away your chakra and makes you immobile. Making sure you can't run away." Naruto explained as he lifted Minato by the collar of his shirt. Everyone stared at the projection in shock and amazement. Holy shit. Naruto summed up everyone's thoughts. To seal a person's chakra and their movements, Kakashi began. And to perform the seals that intricate and so quickly, Shizune continued. Would mean he would have to be a sealing master. Tsunade finished. Jiraiya shook his head. No. Not a master. More like a grandmaster. Perhaps even higher. His skills easily beat mine, and he outclasses both Minato and Kushina as well. Everyone turned to the Toad Sage in shock. Are you serious? Jiraiya turned to all of them. Very. Whoa. Everyone muttered in awe. He's amazing, Naruto said. Scary, but amazing. Minato was panicking and was about to say something, but a harsh punch in the gut made him choke on his words. No more talking. Now take your beatings like a man. Naruto sneered as he reared his arm back and wham, 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 wham. Naruto punches Minato again and again. He could hear his ribs shattering and his organs taking damage. His face was getting more bloody and broken. He coughed blobs of blood as he was continuously pummeled. Everyone flinched as they watched in horror as the Yondaime was being beaten to a pulp. Stop that. Jiraiya and Kakashi shouted in unison as they could not bear to see their student mentor get beaten like this. And by his son, no less. Naruto was as white as a ghost as he gulped down the bile he felt rising. Sure, he was angry, but this was taking it too far. Even for him. Kurama was chuckling as he cheered for Aknologia to continue beating the Yondaime. Kushina watched in horror as her son beat her husband viciously. Naruto finally paused as he saw the bloody mess that the Yondaime was in. He decided it was time to finish this up. He threw the beaten Yondaime to the side as he landed next to his wife. Kushina started asking if he was right, but all Minato could do was groan. Anything Kushina was going to say was cut off as Naruto appeared right in front of them. He raised his arm as his magical energy poured into his palm as it formed into a very familiar sphere. The Rasengan. However, Naruto continued to pour his mana into the sphere as it grew until it was the size of a 10-foot-sized beach ball. "Naruto, please." Kushina pleaded, but Naruto just gave her a dull look. "Farewell, Kushina Uzumaki. Minato Namikaze. Go back to the afterlife knowing that you failed your son. No, stop. Naruto shouted as he couldn't take it anymore. Don't do it. Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Kakashi exclaimed in unison. Naruto was about to launch the Rasengan, but a hand suddenly stopped him. Naruto growled in annoyance as he turned to see who stopped him. His glare vanished as he blankly looked back at the lavender eyes of Hinata. Everyone sighed in relief as the beating stopped. Oh, thank God, Jiraiya said. This is gonna be good, Anko remarked. Why? Was all he asked. Hinata frowned sadly as she continued to look at her crush lover husband. She gave a glance to Kushina and Minato, and her frown deepened as she saw the petrified looks on their faces. She quickly turned back to Naruto's blank stare. I have never seen Minato or Kushina ever look so scared in my life, Jiraiya commented. Yeah well, they nearly just got killed by their son, Kakashi replied. And Kami, Hinata was there to stop them, Tsunade said in relief. That's the power of being the Gaki's girlfriend. Naruto and Hinata both blushed a bit at the reminder. That's enough. Don't do this. Hinata finally said. Naruto's stare became fierce, but before he could say anything, Hinata continued. Naruto, she began slowly. I understand you are angry. I get it. Kurama gets it. You've bottled up all your anger and hatred for Konoha and your parents for so long, and I can tell you have been through much in this world. And after hearing what your parents said, you finally just snapped and vented it out on them. I understand, Naruto. But I can't allow you to continue. I will not allow you to get consumed by your anger and hatred and make a mistake that you will regret. The Kyuubi growled softly from within the seal. The words of that older Hyuga girl. They reminded him of his father. He always told him and his siblings to never be consumed by the hatred of humanity. Sadly, they had let down the old man throughout the millennium as they waited for the one that he spoke about. Naruto was about to speak, but Hinata cut him off. No, I am not done, so you will listen to me, Naruto. Right now we have bigger things to worry about. Such as figuring out who brought us here. So I need you to calm yourself down and not let your anger consume you. This is not you. You are not the masked Uchiha and you are nothing like Sasuke. So prove that right now that you are not an Uchiha and just cooperate with them until this matter is settled. You don't have to like or forgive them. I can't ask you to do that nor can I force you to. But you promised that we would work together to find out who brought us here. So can you settle down or are we going to be stuck like this until you do? Because I will if I have to. Everyone whistled in an impressed tone. Well damn. There's at least one positive, Hinata grew one hell of a backbone. Ino said. Aha. Everyone replied. Hinata blushed red at the praise. She's amazing, Naruto said out loud. Hinata blushed even more as she looked at her crush. Why you really think so? She asked him. Naruto blushed a bit as he did not realize he said it out loud. Why yeah, of course. Naruto was torn between growling in anger or laughing in amusement. Hinata had truly changed since the last time he saw her, which made her all the more desirable to take at the moment. The aforementioned duo blushed crimson from Acnologia's thoughts. Their snickering friends did not help at all. The only time she ever remotely talked like she did now was during their time together. Well brief, it was one of the best times of his life. He wanted to argue, but deep down he knew she was right. Despite hating his parents, killing them will get him nowhere. They needed to work together to figure out how they got here. He sighed before dispelling the Rasengan as his eyes went back to normal. The others sighed in relief, though Minato and Kushina were more noticeable. The two flinched as they saw Naruto staring at them. Naruto flinched at seeing the terrified looks that his alternative parents were giving his other self. He still thinks his other self went too far, though considering what he has gone through, he can understand why he was so angry. And if what the other Hinata said was true, he had not released that pent-up rage in a long time. But still there had to be other ways to vent besides trying to kill your birth parents. The three stayed in a deafening silence until Naruto raised his arm, which caused the two to flinch, until he flicked his wrists as the seals on their bodies disappeared. Naruto flicked his arm once more as Minato's body glowed as all the injuries he sustained disappeared. The two stood up as they looked up at Naruto in confusion. Wow. He actually healed them. Tenten said. Yes, he can cooperate with them, Shikamaru replied. Especially if his wife asks him to. Ino teased, much to Naruto's and Hinata's embarrassment. Don't get the wrong idea. I did it because if we want to find out who brought us here, we need to be in tip-top shape and have you beaten and bloody, while amusing for me, would be nothing but a hindrance. The two flinched but nodded. Naruto turned to Hinata who gave him a proud smile. Oh, how cute. Ino gushed. Please stop, Ino. Naruto groaned. Now Naruto, who do you know that would be capable of summoning the five of us here? She asked. Perhaps we can answer that question, young lady. A voice stated. The occupants turned their heads to the source of the voice and were shocked at who the origin of the voice was. Oh great, now what? Naruto groaned. What else could happen now? Looks like we are having new guests arriving, Shikamaru said. Does it sound like anyone familiar? Niji asked, but everyone shook their heads. Then it must be someone from Earthland. Everyone shrugged. Best guess. Two figures approached them. Both of these beings were equal in size to Kurama and were dragons like Naruto was when he first appeared in the White Void. The first one had aquamarine scales covering the top half of his body, while his lower body was covered in gray scales. His wings were bat-like just like the typical depiction of a dragon and colored aqua like his skin. His eyes were a very light blue that matched the sky on a bright summer day. He had a white flowing bear tied with a golden band going down his chin and had 4 horns on his head, 2 horns on the top of his head and 2 on his side that was golden at the tips and extended outwards and inwards respectively. A white unibrow covered his forehead and went up to his hair. He had 2 golden plates on his shoulders that connected at the front of his body with a chain. At the end of the chain was a large blue jewel. Past the plates was a long dark blue cloak that reached the end of his tail that had 2 golden bands like his beard. He also had 2 brown packs on both of his sides that were filled with books and scrolls. Wow. Everyone said. He looks so old, Naruto said. He reminds me of the Sandaime. In terms of age. Kiba said. Let's hope he's more honest than him as well. Most of the genin muttered in unison. That dragon surprised Naruto, but it was the second that surprised him the most and made him feel something he has not felt in a long time. Fear. Everyone, including Kurama, blinked in confusion. Excuse me? Naruto asked aloud. Fear? What the hell could scare that version of the brat? Anko said. This version of Naruto eradicated an entire country of all sentient life. What in the 9 levels of hell could scare him? Must be someone he knows pretty well. Kurenai guessed. Let's find out, Jiraiya said. The second occupant was a completely black dragon, similar to Naruto's form, but his underbelly was a much darker shade of gray. He had 4 fingers for his claws and talons. His wings were also bat-like in design and had black transparent skin on them. He had 2 horns on his head and 4 on his chin. He had amber eyes with black horizontal slits. He also had bone-like horns that started on his head and then went down his spine to the end of his tail that was in the shape of an axe. The most noticeable attire on this dragon was the silver necklace around his neck that seemed to have an indentation in the center for some kind of jewel. He looks really cool, Naruto said. I wonder what their history is, Lee asked. Something tells me we're about to find out, Tenten remarked. You will learn soon enough, Medric replied. Naruto was shaking at who was in front of him. Hinata looked at him in concern at how afraid he seems right now. She taps him on the cheek with her hand which snaps him out of his trance for him to look at her in fear, which worries her even more. Naruto-kun, what's wrong? You look so shocked and scared. Please, tell me. Hinata pleaded. Naruto remained quiet, but a cough from the dragons got their attention. That's what we want to know, Ino said. I believe we may answer why young Naruto is feeling so anxious in front of us. The blue one said with a smile. Hinata looked at them in worry, while Kurama looked ready to fight if necessary. The blue one's smiles increased when the girl asked who they were. You see, young Hinata, I am known as the Chronicler, one of the elder dragons. I am the watcher for all dragon kind. I have recorded the history of the dragon since its infancy to its present state. My fellow draconian is Thorn. The dragon of energy, the 6th dragon king and Naruto's, or should I say Aknoloja's predecessor and surrogate father. The same father he killed with his own hands. What? Everyone shouted in shock. The other Naruto killed his father. Well, that explains his reaction, but not why he would do such a thing. He killed his own foster father. Why did he do that? Naruto exclaimed. Just what the hell is up with his other self? He destroys an entire country, nearly wipes his entire race, laments about the slaughters, nearly kills his birth parents, and he finds out that he killed his surrogate father. Seriously, he was not used to feeling so many different emotions about a person, especially when that person is another version of himself. That will be answered in the next recording. So I would give you a small recess to go to the bathroom and stretch your legs. Medric explained. Naruto splashed cold water into his face as he sighed deeply. When he woke up this morning, Naruto expected a regular day in his life. He would eat his ramen for breakfast, try to ask Sakura out and get rejected, wait for Kakashi, and do either missions or training before going back home. That was what he was expecting for the next few days, until Jiraiya said they would leave for their training trip. The last thing he was expecting was to be brought into some theater room by some god that wanted to show them different versions of himself. At first, he was excited. How couldn't he be? He gets to see other versions of himself. Maybe see some cool techniques from the viewings and maybe show versions where he is accepted and loved by his village. Perhaps even get the attention of a certain crush of his. However, this was not what he experienced. Sure, seeing the adventures of Fairy Tail was amazing, but it all changed when he and the others found out that Aknoloja was actually his alternate self. It was not bad enough, he heard about how that version slaughtered an entire country's population in a single night. That is not even the worst thing he learned as he found out just how shitty RDK Naruto's life was. Naruto had been hated all his life. He has been glared at, he's had adults either ignore him or tell their children to do the same, he has been denied service and stores are flat out overpriced, and on rare occasions, he has had objects thrown at him or his home get vandalized. But RDK Naruto had it worse. He was beaten regularly and was raped. Naruto had to swallow hard to avoid the bile that wanted to crept up his throat again. He never thought he would hear that happening to any version of himself. And the worst part is that there will probably be other versions of himself or those he cared about that suffered that fate. Great. He grumbled. Now I sound like Neji. Naruto morbidly wondered if they would have to watch the incident occur. The thought brought a cold chill down his spine. He idly wondered if he was in the place of RDK Naruto, what would he do? Would have turned out like RDK Naruto or would he have turned out worse? In the dark recesses of his very soul, Naruto knew that he may not have handled it as well as his counterpart. In fact, a part of him knew he could have easily shattered after that. Naruto looked up into the mirror and looked at what was supposed to be a reflection, but what he saw instead was RDK Naruto staring at him with blank, soulless eyes. Naruto shivered at the gaze he was receiving, the reflection then changed, and this time to two people. Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki. Above all else, the biggest revelation Naruto has received was the identity of his parents. For years, he wondered his parents where and what kind of people they were. He was envious of other children as they walked around with their parents. He asked the Sandaime who his parents were multiple times, but all he would tell the young boy was that his parents died during the Kyuubi attack. Only now he finds out that the Sandaime had lied to his face this entire time. He knew his parents were. But he decided it was best if he did not know the truth until he deems him ready. Just like how I was not ready to learn about the Kyuubi. Naruto thought bitterly. All this time, the old man denied him the information that should have been rightfully his. And not just him. Kakashi, Jiraiya and Tsunade all knew about it too and decided to not tell him either. The former two especially pissed him off as Kakashi was his father's student, but that bloody scarecrow never approached him when he was growing and being part of his Anbu does not count even if he was in it. Then there's Jiraiya. His fucking godfather, he never once approached him even once. And remembering what Medric said to him just pisses him off more. The god was right, Jiraiya could have found easy workarounds to meet him and look after him. But nope. He waits until the Chunin exams to approach and barely teaches him the summoning jutsu and nearly kills him to get him to meet the fox to get access to his chakra. A dark chuckle echoed in his head. It hurts doesn't it, boy? A familiar voice asked. What do you want, fox? Naruto demanded. Now. Can't I be concerned about my jailer's well-being? If that was your attempt at a joke, I am not amused. Well then if humor does not work, let's try this. How does it feel? Naruto frowned. What? Naruto could feel the sneer of the fox's maw. How does it feel to learn that it was your parents that sealed you within me? That the very people that you trusted have lied to you all your life? Naruto remained silent as the fox continued to mock his jailer. It stings, doesn't it? That despite them saying they cared about you, I, the being that has been trying to take you over and kill you, has been more honest to you than them. I would still have parents if you hadn't killed them. Naruto roared. Then your parents shouldn't have tried to seal me again after I had been released. The fox shouted back. What were they supposed to do? Let you destroy their home in your rage? The blonde asked. They should have left me alone. For nearly a century I and the Bijuu have been imprisoned to be used for your ninjas' entertainment. Kyuubi growled. I curse the day that bastard Madara took control of me that day. I curse the day that Hashirama restrained me with his wood release and then his wife sealing me into her. And I curse the day that Hashirama collected all of my brethren and traded us away as if we were toys to be given to children. And then I have to be sealed 2 more times. One in your damn mother who caged me like a fucking animal with stakes stabbed into my tails, hands, feet, and chest. Naruto flinched as he could admit that would be unbearable to live in for years before I was taken control of by those damn eyes again of Madara. Then your parents decided to seal me into you. All for preserving the balance between the shinobi system and believing a foolish child like you could defeat the Maskache. The Kyuubi growled loud as chakra leaked from his cage as Kai emitted from the entire seal from his rage. I curse you and all who would dare preach about being a shinobi. You are all nothing more than filthy greedy abominations on this planet. The demon fox was not always such an embodiment of rage and hatred. As he was once a more calm and benevolent being. However, after centuries of being hunted and hated by humanity, the very same race that took his father's gifts and made it into a weapon for their wars, his compassion and empathy, turned hatred as that was all he was given to know or understand. What made it worse is that the very descendants of his father began to manipulate him and his siblings to keep some foolish system of balance they had created from their inability to understand one another through any other means, except for fighting and killing one another. None of his Jinchuriki ever tried to see it from his point of view, all they saw was a powerful creature that they saw was too dangerous to run free and had me caged for the benefit of the world, they said. to keep his rage in check, they said. Who were they to judge him when they couldn't go a few years without starting another war to mass murder each? And this weak brat that was his current will be the same as well. They were all the same. That is how all humanity is. They can never change. Naruto stayed silent as he digested everything the Kyuubi or he should say Kurama told. Looking at it from the fox's perspective, he can see why the fox would be so angry all of the damn time. Everyone just saw him as a monster that needed to be restrained and locked up, or as a tool, a weapon, to be used in wars they wanted no part. And to add salt into the wound, he was controlled by the Sharingan not once but twice, and both instances ended up with him being sealed. Naruto shuddered as he thought about how the fox was locked up like an animal or crucified on a giant boulder. He can see why the fox would be so happy to get out of that as soon as possible. Strangely, Naruto can relate a lot to how Kurama and the other Biju have been treated. He was never seen as Naruto Uzumaki. The village saw him as the demon brat. They never saw the boy, only what he held within him. He was hated and disregarded by everyone in his home. Kurama was never seen as a sentient creature, but a massive chakra that needed to be retrained and used as a weapon. It never occurred to Naruto that the Biju could feel just as bitter against humanity and their vessels for their terrible lives, just as he hated the fox for making his life miserable. He knew that the fox would never apologize for what he did on the night he was born. At least not yet. But from what he saw from the RDK world, there was more to the fox than a rage-filled behemoth. He can be compassionate in his own way. But he doubts he'll do that anytime soon, but maybe watching these different worlds and actually trying to learn about him. Maybe things can be different between them and end this merry-go-round the fox has been going on with his hatred against humanity. Plus, despite everything he has been through, some people saw him as a person and not as a Jinchuriki or a demon fox. Even if some of them lied to him about things he should have been told, despite how angry he was with them, he can tell they still did care about his well-being. Whether that changed or not in the future remains to be seen. After mulling over his thoughts a bit more, Naruto spoke to his tenant again. I have been lied to all my life, and maybe you're right in some ways. But I am not alone. Kurama raised an intrigued eyebrow. Oh? My friends know about you yet they still accept me. They see us as two separate beings unlike most of the village. Even though the others like Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Kakashi lied to me, they never saw me as the fox. The great fox grumbled. As much as I loathe admitting this, I am slightly impressed that those humans sided with you, though I was not entirely surprised by that Hyuga girl not changing her opinion of you. Naruto blinked. What? I have the ability to sense negative emotions, yet I never sensed any of that kind from that girl. All I could sense were that abhorrent infatuation she had for you. Kurama responded with an eye roll. Naruto's eyes widened to the size of dinner plates. You knew this whole time. Kurama deadpan. Boy, you have to be blind, deaf, and stupid to not know that the girl had feelings for you. Naruto groaned as he slammed his face into the sink. Great. Just great. How are you feeling, Naruto? Naruto raised his head and turned to the voice that spoke the question. It was none other than Shikamaru. The Nara-heir had a worried look on his features. Naruto shrugged. As well as I can be Shika. All things considered, he replied. Shikamaru nodded. I get it. I can tell you that everyone else is feeling similarly. Where is everyone? Naruto asked. Most of them have returned to the viewing room and are just waiting for you. Hinata would have come to get you, but I decided it's best if I do it. Shikamaru explained. Oh. Naruto sounded a bit down. Shikamaru raises an eyebrow at this. What? Disappointed that she didn't come? Or would have preferred Sakura? Naruto groaned in annoyance. Shut up, Shika. The two walked back to the theater room where everyone was just relaxing before they began the viewing again. Anko was pigging out on some dango. Lee and Guy were eating some very spicy curry. Niji was having some tea. Ino, Sakura and Tenten were enjoying a sweet drink. Hinata was indulging in some cinnamon buns. Naruto was shocked as he never expected to see her eat something as fast as he did with ramen. Choji and Kiba were feasting on some meat. Jiraiya and Tsunade were enjoying some sake. Shizune and Kakashi were enjoying some fish together. Kurenai was drinking some wine with some pasta. Naruto decided to eat a few bowls of ramen. After everyone had finished their meals, they sat down and turned to Medric. Are you guys ready? He asked. Everyone nodded. Yeah, let's keep going, Tsunade answered for everyone. Now I hope you get ready because some interesting information is going to be dumped on you guys, Medric informed the group. How interesting? Naruto asked. Medric smirked in response. Let's just say the bombshells will be very shell-shocking. From within the seal, Kurama adjusted himself as he prepared himself for the next viewing. Let's see what we learn this time. A bright flash envelops the mindscape of his cell as several barrels of food and drinks appeared with a large note for him to read. Thought you could have something to feed yourself for entertainment as you watch. You should pay close attention as this next viewing will be important for you as well. How interesting. Let's see what you have for us this time, God. Now then let us begin. Medric declared as the next viewing began. The silence that encompasses the room was deafening. Kurama and Hinata were looking between the dragons and Naruto in shock. Naruto killed his surrogate father. Why though? What would cause him to do such an act against a being who most likely raised him like a son? Power. Revenge. None of those matched with Naruto's beliefs or ideologies. I would be inclined to agree, but that Naruto is very different from the one they probably remember, Shikamaru said. That's an understatement. Naruto and several others muttered in unison. But they had no idea how long it has been for Naruto after his execution. So it's possible that he changed to someone much more bitter and vengeful than his old self. However, any doubts were removed when they saw how the aforementioned blonde was taking the appearance of the two dragons. This ought to be interesting. Several said. In layman's terms, Naruto was shaking like a frightened rabbit. They could tell Naruto was terrified of speaking with the former Dragon King, let alone being in the same room as him. Everyone breathed in as they saw the look on Aknoloja's face. Kiba summed up everyone's thoughts with one word. Damn. After hearing everything he's done and what he just did, I never thought I would ever see this Naruto ever have a face like that, Choji said. Not just anyone would brush off murdering their father. This Naruto, despite how he acts and what he has done, still has a piece of his humanity intact. Well, there's that and the fact that he listens to his Hinata-sama when she tells him to stop, Niji replied. That's the power of love. Ino gushed with Naruto and Hinata blushing. Or he's just plain whipped, Anko suggested. That too. I wish they shut up about that. A blushing Naruto demanded with Hinata thinking similarly with a blush on her entire face. Speaking of Naruto, said blonde could not look Thorin in the eye. He had disgraced the great legacy Thorin had left him with his actions during the Dragon Civil War. He spat on his ideals and his last wishes. That was why at the moment he had his head lowered in shame, not being able to look at Thorin directly. As far as he was concerned, he should not be king. Naruto tilted his head in confusion. He never wanted to be king. Then how come he got called that? Is it self-proclaimed? Shikamaru shook his head. No, I doubt it's just that. Even though he may do it to boast his title around. There are several ways one becomes king to a throne, similar to how a clan heir can become a clan head. He explains. The most obvious one is that the heir succeeds the throne from the previous king. Another way is that a certain event or ritual has to occur for a successor to be chosen. And the most simple way is to kill the king and take the title, though that won't usually work with normal societies. Though dragons may have a more warrior mindset of the mightiest rules, we just have to wait and see. And yet, none of the dragons came after him to take the crown. Was it because he was the strongest or because the crystal still saw him worthy? But why though? He had done nothing to earn that title or its benefits. All he did was bring the dragon race to near extinction. Kiba blinked. Crystal. Could that be what symbolizes someone as the Dragon King? And from how Aknoloja says it, this crystal might be sentient to some extent and chooses who is the king, Shino said. That covers the ritual angle, Ino replied. Shikamaru nodded. Pretty much. That may also explain the grove on Thorin's necklace. It's for the crystal. Niji said. I wonder if we will ever see the crystal. Naruto asked. All in due time, viewers, Medric replied. Hell, all he has been doing for the last 400 years is destroy countless empires and civilizations. Even if many were ruled by tyrannical men or were followers of Zeref, he didn't just kill the king, he killed everything. Every man, woman, and child was eradicated by him. It was a literal genocide. He brought nothing but death, destruction, and annihilation to anything and anyone that came in his line of sight. All in the name of filling the empty void that had not closed in those 400 years. Everyone gasped. That's all he did for 400 years. Just killing and destroying anything he could find. That's how he coped with his pain. Tsunade asked. Medric shook his head. Not solely. But it was what he did for a majority of those 4 centuries. What did he do in between the mindless destruction? Jiraiya asked. Well, Aknoloja swiftly realized that constantly destroying everything with nothing and no one that has the power to fight back can get rather boring. So he found some activities to entertain himself. Such as everyone began, but Medric shrugged his shoulders. Spoilers. Everyone grumbled about troublesome gods, much to the amusement of the Watcher god. The blonde was cut from his musings when a black claw touched his chin and lifted his head. He locked his eyes with Thorin. While he expected rage or disappointment, he did not expect a gentle expression on Thorin's face. He merely smiled at Naruto's bewildered look. It has been a long time, my son. You have grown to become a magnificent dragon, Naruto. Naruto's eyes widened and just gawked as he pushed the claw away and looked at Thorin in anguish and confusion. Never expected that type of response, I guess. Shizune suggested. Let's see how he reacts to them, Kakashi replied. I sense a bit of a rant coming in, Anko said. Several nodded. Same here. How can you say that to me? How can you say all that after everything I have done? I killed you. I killed countless of my brethren in cold blood. Hell, part of me enjoyed it while I saw their lives being taken away as their eyes lost their light and they fell into the cold earth. For dragon's sake, I drank and bathed in their blood and ate some of their bodies and organs. How can you still look at me with such love and affection? I don't deserve to be loved. Why don't you scorn me? Why don't you hate me? Answer me. Everyone was dead silent as the color drained from their faces. Even Kurama was surprised at this new tidbit of information. He drank their blood and actually bathed in it. Naruto began as he gulped. He committed cannibalism. The Okami. Hinata gasped out as she trembled in shock and fear. I am going to be sick. Kiba moaned. Dead in line. Everyone else said in unison. How could he? Tsunade demanded. Medric sighed. I will say that he did not just decide to do that on a whim. This was a slow decline in his sanity and rage throughout the war he was participating in at the time. And the trigger that caused him to go full cannibal was a betrayal that made him finally snap. But it was one final event that really destroyed who RDK Naruto used to be and caused what he became now. The god explained. Medric raised his hand. Before you ask, those events will be explained later on. Will we have to watch it? Naruto asked with some trepidation. Yes. Fuck. Everyone thought. By the end of his rant, Naruto was on his hands and knees opening, weeping and shaking. He couldn't understand why his father still loved him after everything he has done to him, to their people, to his legacy. Hinata could not stand anymore and watch her beloved look so broken. The last time she saw him like this was before his execution. She rushed to his side and did her best to comfort him despite his protest. She did not care about the things that he had done. It's been years since she saw him and people change as tragedy happens to them. She did not care if he was the reincarnation of evil itself. She promised she would love him for all eternity, even if it meant falling into the depths of hell to be with him. She would jump off the edge without a second thought. Awa. Many of the girls, and some of the guys, gushed out loud, much to a certain pair's embarrassment. Now that's dedication. Kurenai complimented. Love for all eternity and jumped straight into the depths of hell to be with Naruto. My Hinata, who knew you could be so passionate about your love. An envious Ino replied. I hope we get to see some blonde Hyugas in these. Anko teased as Hinata and Naruto blushed a deep scarlet red. Medric smirked. You might just get your wish. Beep. Hinata squeaked as steam billowed out of her head. Despite his embarrassment, Naruto was looking at RDK Hinata in shock. She would go that far for him. Even after everything he said and did, she still loves him. Is that what real love looks like? The one thing Naruto wanted more than anything was to be acknowledged and accepted. To be loved. He thought by becoming Hokage he could get the love he saw everyone was giving the Sandaime. But while his friends acknowledge and accept him, it's not the love he wanted. He thought by getting Sakura to date him, he could get that love. But she always rejected him and went after Sasuke. It was one of the reasons he made Sasuke his rival. If he could become better than Sasuke, perhaps he can prove his worth to Sakura, so maybe she'll go to him. But here is another version of him that's basically of everything he is, and yet he has someone that would always be by his side no matter what. Someone that liked him and he never noticed. Something that everyone else probably knew, which made him want to smack himself even more. He turned to see his version of the Hyuga girl. Would my Hinata do the same? Naruto shook his head in exasperation. That you head out of the clouds. You're not even dating Hinata. Hell, you barely know her. But maybe that could change. Naruto could only hope. Meanwhile, Kurama looked at the scene with a sad expression on his maw. He knew what it was like to have failed a father and to have killed thousands of people for years. This caused everyone to blink in surprise. What exactly does that mean? Jiraiya asked with some suspicion. Did the Kyuubi have parents? Naruto asked before hearing the angry growls of his tenant. That is not your concern, Ninjin. The blonde frowned in annoyance. Don't have to be such a crouch. Naruto grumbled. As far as I know, none of the Biju have any type of parents as they are beings of sentient chakra, not flesh and blood. So I have no idea who the other Kyuubi is referring to. The Toad Sage replied. It was like him and Naruto were reflections of one another. It actually made him feel some pity to know that someone he came to care about like a son ended up as he did in his life. Excuse me? Many people exclaimed in shock and surprise. Son Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Kakashi shouted in outrage. That Kyuubi sees me as his son. Naruto shouted. His eyes narrowed as he heard his fox laughing hysterically with the seal. Quit laughing, fox. Aw, what's the matter, kid? Why are you so angry at your dear father? Naruto felt several veins on his head throb as his eye twitched erratically. Piss off. He looks to Kushina and Minato to see them looking at the distressed Naruto in sorrow. They must have realized that Naruto's cold and sadistic persona was a facade to hide away from the shame, guilt, pain, and, most importantly, the anger that lay deep within. Kurama just had to chuckle cynically. No matter how much time passes, some things would never change. In Naruto's case, wearing a mask to hide his true feelings. Naruto flinched as everyone turned to him. What the hell does that mean? Shikamaru asked. Naruto. Jiraiya began. Naruto, while still angry at Jiraiya, was too distracted to focus on his anger. Why yeah? He asked. Do you have any idea about what that other Kyuubi is talking about? Naruto shook his head. No, I don't. It is unwise to lie, boy. Kurama warned. Shut up. Naruto, I have to agree with Kurama. It's unwise to lie. Medric advised. I don't know what you're talking about. Naruto retorted. Yes, you do. Since the moment you can understand words and speak, you have been hated by your village. All for something that is beyond your control. All the hatred and anger could break any normal person. But not you. Medric explained. Everyone stayed silent as they let the gods speak. The rookies had to keep their tempers in check as they heard about Naruto's upbringing even more. You could not understand why you were hated so much. But you hated how they looked at you. You wanted to make them stop looking at you like that. And then you came with an idea. If you acted like a fool and pulled pranks, you may get the people's attention. Even if it was bad, any attention was better than none. Everyone who did not know about this had their eyes widen as they looked at the blonde in shock and guilt as they realized how little they knew about that looked at Naruto in concern as he held his head down. Shut up, Naruto said lowly. So you crafted your clown mask. You practiced in a mirror to continuously smile and have that smile every day on your face, no matter what happens. Well, you bury every negative emotion you had. You smile at everyone and that's all they see. Yet nearly all of them lack the sight to see the undying sorrow and loneliness beneath those eyes and the cold hatred that lies beneath them as well. Shut up. Naruto exclaimed as everyone flinched from the blonde's sudden outburst. That's a lie. I may be angry at Konoha, but I don't hate it. Medric sighed. I prefer you don't lie to me, Naruto. I am not. Are you going to say this to me? Especially with the evidence staring everyone in the face. Medric asked as he pointed at the screen. What does one version keeping his problems bottled up have to do with me? It has everything to do with you, since nearly every version of you suffers from the same problem. The god retorted. And what's that? Naruto demanded. You wear a mask to conceal your true feelings, and before you try to deny again, why don't we ask two individuals? Kurama, I know you can hear me. Since you have been with Naruto since his birth, you should know the answer to this. Naruto continued to glare at the god as his furry companion spoke again. It's never wise to lie to a god, kid. I don't hate Konoha. You may deny it all you want, but I have been with you all your life. I know all of your inner dark secrets. Deep down a part of you truly despises your village and wishes for it to burn. You're lying. Me? What do I gain from lying to you? You carry a palpable amount of hatred, boy. And the more you deny it, the easier it would be for my power to consume you. What do you mean? I have spoken enough for now on the topic. Let the god continue this interrogation. Now then, I can see you're still not convinced. Hinata. The indigo girl flinched as she now had the attention of the entire room. Why yes? She asked. Can you provide your input on Naruto's mask? The young girl gulped as she turned to her blonde crush. Naruto, I have noticed how when people say terrible things to you, you always force out a smile. I can tell it's fake because you usually have your eyes closed and your smile is stretched out too much. You always give it when something is bugging you. And I have seen when someone really gets under your skin, I can see you have brief flashes of anger pass by your eyes. Everyone, including Naruto, just stared at the Hyuga in surprise. Naruto was shell-shocked at how well Hinata could read him. Sure, he knew how perspective she could be during their talk before his fight with Neji, but he never knew she saw even that. It was weird and kind of frightening. But a part of him was also delighted to know that someone could understand him that well. It made him feel weird, like a warm sensation bubbling in his stomach and chest. He wasn't sure what this was, but he did not dislike it either. Well, as much as I would like to say that I told you so, we have to put a pin on this conversation for now. Medric declared. Back with Naruto, he continued to sob while Hinata held him as tightly as she could and whispered comforting words from her. He did not deserve such a gesture from such a kind woman. She was light personified, while he was darkness in its worst form. Yet he held her as tightly as he could, as if she was his lifeline. Maybe I can be that kind of comfort for my Naruto, Hinata thought to herself. Oren looked down at his son in sadness. He knew that Naruto had suffered far worse than most dragons have suffered in all of their lifetimes combined. He knew that he had bottled all his anguish, but he needed to get back to business to help with the mission ahead. Naruto, look at me. He said, and Naruto obeyed. What happened 400 years ago was a tragedy. A great tragedy indeed. However, it was unavoidable with how the war was going for both sides. Someone would have ended just like you, and the same result would have occurred, regardless of what you or anyone else did. None of the dragons blame you for what happened. Not me. Not the chronicler, nor the elementals or the other dragons. Didn't you ever wonder why none of them nor allies did anything to stop you? It's because they felt some responsibility for what happened to you and decided to leave you alone in your grief and ordered the remaining dragons to go into hiding. Now that you have calmed down to a reasonable level, the chronicler and his father decided to set this little meeting up and to give you something. What do they want to offer Naruto-kun? Hinata asked for him. Oren smiled at the girl before caressing her cheek with one of his claws. So you are the famous Hinata. Naruto would always speak about you for a very long time. I must say you as beautiful as he described. He would always talk about you most of the time, calling you his lavender queen or moon goddess. He especially talked all the time when your daughter asked him about you. I am glad I had a chance to meet my son's first mate. Several hummed in amusement. Oh, Naruto, you have a way with words. Lavender queen and moon goddess. I wonder what our Hinata thinks about this. Ino gushed. I bet she'll love to gain such affectionate titles from her crush. Anko teased. Hinata squeaked again. Yep. Shikamaru uttered. Choji turned to his oldest friend in confusion. What's up, Shika? Thinking about what Naruto should call our Hinata? That would be too troublesome for me, Naruto can handle it. I was thinking about Oren saying those two having a daughter. The Nara heir's words caused everyone to blink as they thought about what Oren said to the older Hinata. Now that you mention it, Tenten began. He did, Asuma confirmed. Oh, you two had a kid, oh I can't wait to see them. Anko teased. Hey KK kids with Naruto-kun and Atomic Red, Hinata squeaked. Wait, isn't Hinata a little too young to have kids? A suspicious Kurenai asked. Anko smacked her best friend on the shoulder. Oh, don't be a prude, Kurenai. That Hinata looks like she's in her early 20s at least, and if we take into account what the fox said when he first spoke to Naruto. A little young, but considering our life expectancy, maybe she wanted to have one before anything could happen to her. Look what happened to Naruto. I think I know who their kid is. Thought several people in the audience. Hinata was literally steaming red from what Thorin told her. Beautiful. Moon goddess. Lavender queen. How can Naruto swoon her over with such simple words? They only met after a few years and yet he can sweep off her feet so easily. She looked at Naruto and saw his eyes. She saw that he meant every word and that they were still true to him even now. She wanted to take him right then and there, but something Thorin said got her attention and caused her to look at the dragon in confusion. Several people blushed red from listening to RDK Hinata's thoughts, none more so than Naruto and Hinata. Damn, that girl is a horny vixen, Jiraiya said, which led to Kurenai and Tsunade smacking him over the head. It's always the quiet ones that get you, Ino said. Anko gave a very perverted grin. And they're the biggest screamers in bed. Yep. Anko. What, you know it's true, Nai-chan. Anko gave her friend a saucy smirk. Especially from personal experience. Holy shit. That was the last straw for some of the audience, as most of the guys went flying due to blood. Hinata fainted with steam erupting out of her head and blood oozing out of her nose, and the other girls were either blushing terribly, in Kurenai's case trying to bury her face into her hands and get the ground to swallow her, and Anko cackling madly. Edric then whistled loudly as he got the attention of everyone still conscious. Alright, enough. Well, this is entertaining, I need everyone to be conscious. The last thing I need you two doing is traumatizing the kids. He said in an amused tone. Too late for that. Thought most of the audience, including the barely conscious group of guys and girls. Though traumatizing would not be the word they would use. After calming everyone down and conscious, they resumed, though it should be noted that Kurenai and Tsunade were glaring at Anko, and a pair of indigo and blonde-haired genin could not look at one another. Orinoto-sama, what do you mean daughter? Naruto and I have no children. Oren smiled at his nickname, as did Chronicler, Naruto, and Kurama. Did you forget the time between Naruto and yourself before he was executed? Hinata blushed a deep red again and nodded, remembering her time with her beloved. Oh, I can tell there's a naughty story behind that blush. Enough, Anko. An exasperated Tsunade ordered. Anko pouted but relented, much to the relief of Naruto and Hinata. Why yes. Now about this offer? She asked. Before that, I think there are some people that need to be informed about some events. Right, Naruto. The chronicler spoke this time. Naruto nodded and got up before walking over to Kurama and his parents again. Naruto looked at them seriously, while the two were nervous but remained calm. What I am about to show you is my life up till my execution. I have no reason to lie to either of you, so know this is the absolute truth. I swear a blood oath to the dragons I am showing you the truth. After he finished that, lightning boomed within the void, confusing everyone except the dragons and Naruto on what it meant. The chronicler decided to explain. Everyone felt a shiver go down their spines. Well, then the plot thickens. Shino comments. Is that normal for an oath to cause lightning? Naruto asked. In this world about that oath, yes, Medric explained. The blood oath to the dragons is a sacred vow that a being makes that they swear to uphold and accomplish the task they promise to keep. Failure to do so would mean eternal pain and suffering for the person that broke that solemn oath. Everyone whistled. Damn. That's one hell of an oath, Anko said. He must be serious if he's going this far, Asuma replied. Everyone looked at Naruto in shock. He would really take it that far to prove he was telling the truth. Then again it was just like him to do something so crazy. Naruto then closed his eyes. Byakugan. When he opened his eyes, they glowed a pale white. Hinata looked at him confused as to why he called it that. I named it Byakugan because of how my eyes looked and some of their abilities match yours. Plus it was my way to honor you. It made me feel like I had a piece of you with me at all times. Oh. The girls gushed as Hinata blushed again. He honors you? Ino teased. I hope this ends soon. Naruto and Hinata thought. He smiled when Hinata looked like she was the happiest woman on the planet and gave him a big fat wet French kiss. The kiss lasted for a few minutes and involved a lot of tongue movement until Naruto was given some time to breathe. He looked to see that Hinata's face was flushed and her eyes had a lot of lust in them. Lust for him and him only. He knew he probably had the same look on him. This time both Naruto and Hinata fainted with cherry red faces and wide eyes. Oh. Damn, now that was a makeout, Ino muttered with several nodding in agreement. That was hot, Sakura said in embarrassment and something else that only Ino picked up. She looked at her friend with a sly grin. This was getting interesting. If that's what he gets for naming an ability for her, I can't wait to see what gets him some steamy lovemaking if that steamy French kiss was anything to go by. Enko. Tsunade and Kurenai exclaimed, I really hope we don't see that. Thought several in the audience. The dragons and Fox just laughed at the display. Minato and Kushina were blushing at the display of affection since that should be reserved in the bedroom. Naruto pulled his attention back to his parents. Memory projection. He shouted as a giant white screen appeared above his head. The screen flashed to life. Now then we will go through Naruto's memories. So just sit back and endure. We are in for a bumpy ride. Medric warned. Everyone gulped as they focused back at the projections. He projected Konoha after Kurama's attack and was sealed inside Naruto. The scenery was from a horror movie. The fire was everywhere, burning buildings and corpses of the dead. Buildings crushed and destroyed and many areas were left barren. Bodies of the dead were scattered everywhere, sometimes only limbs were all that remained of the person. The scene changed to the council room when the reinstated Sandaime took charge after his successor's death and revealed Naruto's condition to the council. Immediately they screamed for his death on the civilian side, while the shinobi wanted him on a leash or in a jail cell to protect everyone. Danzo wanted him as a weapon to be used against their enemies. The Sandaime demanded silence and explained Naruto will live in the orphanage and later be put in a home in the red light district with no one helping him, including the Hokage. Almost everyone agreed and the meeting ended. Everyone clenched their fists in anger at seeing the council quickly demand the death of a child that was just born. Neji and Hinata were close to activating their Byakugan as the others were leaking chakra. The scene changed to Naruto having a horrible time in the orphanage. Being given worn-out clothes and barely any blankets to keep himself warm. The other kids and caretakers abused and bullied the child for the years he remained in the orphanage. When he was 4, he was thrown out onto the streets, in a blizzard no less. He would have died from hypothermia and frostbite if the fox had not used his chakra to keep Naruto warm and protected from the elements. Naruto lived in cardboard boxes for shelter and found his food from the various dumpsters he scavenged around. After one beating on his birthday, he was given his rundown apartment. It was during his time he met the good people of Ichiraku Ramen that always gave him a bowl of food. It soon became his favorite place to eat and hang out. But that did not deter the numerous attempts at his life. He was beaten and abused in the vilest ways a human could do to a child. Then when he was 8, he was kidnapped by several villagers that toured and raped him for several months. By the time he was rescued by the Hokage and some of his trusted Anbu, the deed was done. The same Anbu that arrived late to save from his beatings. After his rescue, Naruto was an empty husk. He cared nothing for anyone or anything. He was tired of the pain, of all the suffering. So he took a knife in his home and pierced his heart with it. Ooh. Literally the entire audience screamed in horror. Most of the girls were in tears as they wished they could rush in and comfort the child Naruto and stop him from trying to commit suicide. Oh god. Screamed a traumatized Tsunade. Damn it. Damn it. Shouted a grief-stricken Jiraiya. Most of the others were horrified as they never thought they would ever see Naruto of all people try to commit suicide, and as a child no less. They morbidly wondered if he was not as stubborn as he was, would he have tried to do the same? While he may not have been violated, the emotional trauma would be more than enough to push anyone over the edge. He fell to the floor as he was drowning in a pool of his own blood. But the fox saved him from death and he was taken to the hospital to speed up the healing. After release, Naruto would try to end his life for months, but each time he failed miserably. Naruto finally just gave up on trying to end his life, then he came up with the idea of becoming Hokage and gaining everyone's love and appreciation. Since everyone looks up to the Hokage with love, awe, respect, and look up to him for guidance, he decided to do the same. It was an act of desperation. A desperate dream of a child that wanted to be loved. My god, Naruto, how much have you been suffering under the surface? Thought a majority of the audience. Naruto-kun, Hinata muttered, but the blonde stayed silent as he stared up at the projection. He entered the academy to become a ninja, but he quickly saw that his teachers did everything possible to sabotage his learning. Naruto decided to play pranks to get back at them and to vent out his hate to the village. Plus it was a good lesson in stealth and he managed to outrun the Chunin, Jonin, and even Anbu chasing him for hours. He literally painted the village's monument in broad daylight in a neon orange jumpsuit and no one caught him until he was done. The day he failed for the third time he was tricked into stealing the scroll of ceilings, which was a relic of the village. He mastered a forbidden technique from it in just a few hours. The technique was called the Shadow Clone Jutsu, which creates solid copies of the user. These copies were self-conscious and able to think for themselves, but usually acted identical to the original. The main thing was that anything they learn or experience goes to the original user after they are dispelled in a cloud of smoke. He used it to save the one teacher that cared about him and beat the other teacher that tricked him into stealing the scroll. He was put in a team with his crush Sakura Haruno and his emo rival Sasuke Uchiha. His teacher was a masked cyclops by the name of Kakashi Hatake. He was a lazy bum that always arrived 3 hours late and gave the worst exercises you could have ever heard. He gave lousy exercises and always focused on Sasuke. Sakura never cared and always fawned over Sasuke. She would always berate and hit Naruto whenever he tried to cheer her up or ask her out. Then came his first mission outside the village that went from a simple C rank to an A rank. It was during this mission he learned what his ninja way will be and how he will live his life in the shinobi world. Kakashi. A disturbingly calm Tsunade called out. A shiver went down the spine of the copy ninja and everyone else in the room. Why yes. He stuttered out. Did you actually let a genin team fight a missing nin from Kiri? And one that has as much infamy as the demon of the mist? She asked. In my defense, they wanted to continue the mission and I was the one fighting him. Most of the time. Yet you still got caught, she said. Kakashi gulped. Well minus that minor hiccup. We will talk later after this. Then came the chance to advance in ninja rank, the Chunin exams. It was broken into 3 parts. A written part, which went off with little trouble. The second part was a survival exam in an area called the Forest of Death. That is where things went to shit. First, the 3 got separated from each other by a powerful wind attack. Then Naruto gets eaten by a giant snake. And after he gets out he finds his teammates being attacked by the guy that sent that snake. This man was Orochimaru. Naruto used some of Kurama's chakra to fight him, but he was knocked eventually by having his connection cut off by Orochimaru. After the snake marks Sasuke with a curse mark, he leaves them to their own devices. His team barely makes it to the 3rd stage. The preliminary stage was set to narrow down the numbers. Naruto is able to win as did Sasuke. Sakura ends her fight in a draw. Naruto then makes it his personal mission to beat Neji for nearly killing Hinata in their match. Naruto and the others had 1 month to train before the 3rd round. Naruto meets Jiraiya for the first time. Jiraiya was one of Orochimaru's teammates and both studied under the Sandaime. He teaches Naruto how to summon toads and use Kurama's chakra consciously. This was when he met Kurama for the first time. After that Naruto relaxes until the fateful day of the exams. Naruto nearly loses to Neji, but Kurama's chakra helped him pull out a win. Rip. Oh. Jiraiya let out a girlish cry as Tsunade had a vicious and tight grip of his crouch. You threw him off a ravine, Tsunade growled. I had everything under control. I was confident he would get the fox to help him. Jiraiya protested as he tried to defend his actions. And if he never went into his mindscape? Hell, what if the fox decided not to help him? Tsunade asked. Jiraiya blinked a few times. I never considered that. That was the absolute worst answer to give, but Jiraiya realized this too late as Tsunade proceeded to beat the crap out of him with Naruto, Hinata, Shizune, Anko, and Kurenai helping. After Jiraiya was left a bloody heap, Tsunade turned to Medric, who was looking at the spectacle with a sweat drop. Continue, Tsunade ordered as Medric snapped his fingers for Jiraiya to be conscious, but still in pain for the rest of the viewing. He should be healed by the end of these flashbacks, Medric mused as the projection began again. Then during the last round, Orochimaru initiates an invasion he had been planning along with another village, Suna. Naruto ends up fighting Gaara, who had Kurama's youngest brother, Shukaku, inside him, but driven insane by the faulty seal that caused Gaara to have insomnia. Naruto was able to change Gaara's view on life, but many died in the aftermath of the invasion, including the Sandaime. Wait, you were the one that beat Gaara and Shukaku? Several of the genins exclaimed. Yeah, it was a tough battle, but I managed to squeeze out a win with the help of the Chief Toad and the Kyuubi. You better be grateful. Naruto rolled his eyes as he replied he was, which caused the fox to pause as he wondered what was up with his vessel now. Naruto stayed silent as he knew he owed the fox for helping him when he could have chosen not to and let Naruto get himself beaten to a pulp by Gaara and the Sand Demon, but he didn't. so the least he could do was give a thank you. Naruto and Jiraiya go to find the Sandame's last student, Tsunade Senju. She is the greatest healer in all of the elemental nations and the strongest female ninja. She was in her 50s like her teammates, but looked to be in her 20s because of a special technique. Naruto finds out she is a drunken mess because of the loss of her loved ones during the last war and compulsive gambler with horrible luck. He is able to get her out of her drunken mess and convince her to return to the village, but not before there was a battle royale between Tsunade and Jiraiya against Orochimaru and his assistant Kabuto. Kabuto was in his late teens with silver hair tied in his ponytail. He wore round glasses and purple pants with a matching shirt and fingerless gloves with a white sash tied around his waist. The fight ended with Orochimaru and Kabuto running away. Though while Naruto did barely anything, he did learn his father's signature move, the Rasengan, during this time as a consolation. After they returned to Konoha and Tsunade became the Goddamn Hokage, Naruto went on several missions, including saving an actress that turned out to be an actual princess of Spring Snow Country and helping a powerful lord in the land of tea. However, everything went downhill when Sasuke tried to leave for Orochimaru to get more power so that he could kill his brother. Naruto and a team of his friends were chosen to go after him. In the end, it was a fight between Naruto and Sasuke at the Valley of the End. Naruto managed to take the win thanks to Kurama's chakra. Naruto. The blonde flinched from the sudden shout of Tsunade as everyone looked either in shock at the projection or the blonde himself. Did that happen exactly like we just saw? Did Sasuke Uchiha use the Chidori on you, not once, but twice? Tsunade demanded. Come on, Tsuba-chan. I am standing right here. What does it matter? Naruto asked as he inadvertently went back to his nickname for Tsunade. Tsunade did not look amused as she narrowed her eyes at Naruto. Naruto, I am not asking as your so-called Ba-chan, I am asking as your commanding officer, as your Hokage. Now answer the question with the truth, Genin, she ordered. Naruto gulped at the look he was getting. He knew they were not going to continue unless he answered honestly. And if he tried to lie, Medric may just intervene. So with a heavy heart, he sighed and answered with great reluctance. Why yes. Did he also pile drive you into the ground, thus causing your spine and neck to snap and set you on fire multiple times? Yeah, Naruto said. Sakura was completely pale as she stared at the projection with wide unblinking eyes. She had begged Naruto to bring Sasuke back to her. Even though she knew how he felt, she made him promise to bring her crush back to her. Because that is what Naruto would do. Especially if it's for her. And when he failed, Naruto said that even if it took a lifetime, he would bring Sasuke back even after he tried and nearly succeeded in killing him. Oh god, what have I done? She thought with great shame. Damn you, Sasuke. Thought everyone that was on the retrieval mission. They busted their asses for the Uchiha and many of them nearly died for him, and what does he do? He brushes off all of their sacrifices and nearly kills Naruto multiple times. Hell, if it was any of the others then they would be dead right now. Hell, Naruto would be dead as well if it weren't for Kurama. I should have never taught him that damn technique. Kakashi cursed with great shame for teaching Sasuke the Chidori. You will pay for this, Uchiha. You as well, Orochimaru. But Kakashi, you and I will discuss giving a mentally scarred child such a dangerous jutsu like the Chidori. Tsunade swore. Hey, fox. Naruto called out to his furry companion. What do you want, brat? The fox demanded. Thanks for saving me. Kurama blinked a few times as he was unsure he heard that correctly. What? He asked again. I said thanks for saving me. You didn't have to, but you did, twice. So thanks. Kurama's eyes narrowed in anger as he shouted. Don't thank me. It's weird. I only helped you because I would have died if I did nothing. Plus watching you beat the Uchiha was enjoyable to watch. That's right, just a good pastime. Don't have to be such an asshole. Naruto grumbled. Despite his angry retort, Kurama was actually stunned to hear a thank you from his vessel. First an apology and now a thank you. He was seriously beginning to wonder just what was happening to him. Unknown to the duo, Medric was smiling in their direction. They were making progress, he mused. Good. This would make things easier later down the line. He dragged Sasuke back hoping for some recognition at long last. Nope. Not even fucking close. Immediately the council said he had used excessive force to bring back the Uchiha and needed to be put down. They threw him in jail and told him that his execution would be held in a week. No one came to see him or even allowed to see him. Not his friends. Not his teachers. No Iruka. No Jiraiya. No Tsunade. No one. The last time he saw them was when he was dragged into the prison. All of his friends calling him a traitor and a monster. Apparently, the council blew the lid on his secret and now everyone knew he was the Kyuubi Jinchuriki and hated him for it. His closest people, Iruka, Tsunade and Jiraiya did nothing for him and watched in silence as he was taken away. Growls and shouts of anger. 50 traitors and hypocrites were the most common words spoken by the group. Along with a few colorful words, courtesy of Anko. Go to damn hell, you backstabbing bitch. Tsunade roared to her other self. How could you just stand there and do nothing? Did Minato's sacrifice mean little to you? To us? Jiraiya demanded. Never have I wished to blow my own head off. Kakashi said with clenched fists. It was in his time of solitude he realized how foolish he had been in trying to change the village. It was during this time that Hinata visited him. She bawled her eyes out as she confessed her love for him. She managed to find a way into the prison and had one night of beautiful love filled with passion. Minato, Kushina, and Hinata blush at this, and Kurama helps Naruto have one thing to remember her by. Nearly everyone that watched the projection with wide and unblinking eyes and completely red faces. Holy shit. Several of them went flying with a bloody red nose. Thump. Thump. Shit. Hinata and Naruto have fainted. Hey, why did we only see the beginning and end? I demand a rewind to see the whole thing now. Anko demanded. Please no. Several begged. Wake that brat. He needs to pay for taking Hinata's purity. Kurenai demanded as she began marching towards the unconscious blonde but smack she was stopped by a smack to the head courtesy of Anko. Are you high? Nai-chan. Hinata gave herself to Naruto, not to mention it was so the kid could have something to remember her by. Kurenai growled but relented knowing she was letting her protective nature get the better of her. Eventually, they got Naruto and Hinata to wake up but every time they locked eyes, they would blush immediately and turn away. Didn't think the Kyuubi would be so helpful in the end, Kakashi said. I still can't believe that brat made a deal with the Shinigami of all deities, Jiraiya muttered. Not like he had any other choice, Tsunade replied. Kurama was watching the projection with wide eyes. This kid is both the most reckless person I have ever met and the luckiest being probably in all creation. And I really don't know how to feel about that. He also gives Naruto his power since he has been the only one worthy of his power. He also reveals Naruto's heritage to him, which was the start of his hatred for his parents and his desire to destroy Konoha. That explains a bit, Guy said. Lawful timing, Asuma replied. On the day of his execution, the entire village came out to see it except Hinata and the Ichirakus. Naruto was killed by being set on fire. But he did not scream, he laughed. A bone-chilling laugh that filled the air and scared the shit out of everyone. He then told them his heritage and why Kurama attacked the village before finally dying and leaving his old world for a new one. Damn, that was intense. Was the general thoughts of everyone. And there is much more to come. Their host said. Great. The group grumbled. The screen finally disappeared as Naruto's eyes returned to normal. He was panting somewhat from the overuse of his eyes since it had been a long since he went that long with a memory projection. He realized that he was seriously out of shape and needed to fix that. Everyone looked at the projection incredulously, everything we have seen him do, and he calls that out of shape. Asuma said. If he calls that out of shape, I hate to see what in shape he can do, Anko said. Nothing short of insane. Medric proclaimed. He looks up to see Hinata worried but waves it off. He turns to his parents and sees that they were broken in a sense. Everyone flinched. Damn. I know it would hit them hard, but I didn't think it would be this bad, Naruto commented. Minato. Kushina. Kakashi, Jiraiya and Tsunade thought and worried. Both were crying their eyes, slamming their fists to the ground cursing everyone and wishing that the two just let Kurama destroy the village if this was what awaited their son. They cursed the Uchiha that released Kurama and turned him on the village, they curse Sasuke for being the final nail to end Naruto's life, they cursed Tsunade, Jiraiya, Kakashi, and the Sandaime for not helping their son enough for looking after him. They cursed the entire village to the pits of hells and most of all, they cursed themselves for damning their son. They had foolishly believed that their son would be loved by everyone and would be seen as a hero by all. What fucking idiots they had been. Their stupid naive idealism cost their son not only a childhood but a life in general. The question that continued to plague their minds was why? Why did the people they trusted with their lives did not do the same for their own flesh and blood? Did they just pretend to care about them and showed their true colors to Naruto? Was this really what they gave their lives for? They saved their village for their son to be beaten and killed. To be turned into a monster worse than the Kyuubi. I'm sorry. We really did fail you. We should have been better. But we were cowards to take up the responsibility. We could have done more, but we didn't. And this caused not only RDK Naruto and our Naruto to suffer unnecessarily. We wasted his potential and have squandered it with our own issue blinding us to it. Jiraiya thought. They were cut from their musings when Naruto began to speak. I have shown you the truth of my upbringing and now I have something to say. Something that has been long overdue. You two have caused me a great deal of misery in my existence. Whether it was indirectly or involuntarily, the fact remains is you made my childhood a living hell. But I should thank you since I was given a father in the form of Kurama and Thorin, Minato flinches, and a mother in Thorin's queen, Saphira, Kushina flinches. After everything that's happened to me, I can honestly say without remorse that I hate both of you. I hate you so much that it burns my very being. Even though you now feel remorse for your mistakes, it does not change anything for me. And that's why I can never accept you as my parents. Not now. Maybe not ever. The aforementioned duo felt their entire world shatter. Their own son doesn't see the two as his parents. Hell, he sees two dragons and the Kyuubi of all beings as his parents more than the two of them. They couldn't blame him though. They failed miserably as parents. All they gave him was a burden he was too young to understand or bear, and left with people that turned their backs on him, wanted nothing to do with him, or wanted him dead. They hung their heads low as new waves of tears came to their eyes. Everyone flinched at Aknologia's words to his own birth parents. Damn, that was cold. Naruto frowned at his counterpart. He didn't have to take this far. I get why, but he didn't have to take out on them so harshly. Jiraiya was visibly shaking. How could he do that to them? After everything they did for him, he just cuts them off so easily, he said in anger. It's our own fault for not being there for him, Tsunade responded. Then we deserve the hatred, not them. They didn't do anything to deserve that. The Toad Sage snapped. The Slug Sannin shook her head. There's nothing we can do about those two, but maybe we can do something for our Naruto. That is if he is willing to listen, Kakashi replied. We will just have to try. We have to not let his anger solely focus on Minato or Kushina. They don't deserve it. We will take that hatred and hope he doesn't feel the same as RDK Naruto does to his parents. We fucked up so bad. Was their collective thought as they wept once more for the new wound in their hearts. The two felt a pair of arms wrap around them. They looked up to see Hinata's sympathetic gaze. The two buried their heads on her shoulders as they continued to sob and weep. Hinata held onto the two tightly as she whispered comforting words to them. She paused as she looked towards Naruto. She gave him a sad look while Naruto retained a blank stare. She knew he was not bothered by her actions, and she knew she could not say anything to change his mind. Even during their time together, Hinata could not help Naruto to let go of his anger towards his parents. And it seems his time on Earthland had not been kind all of the time to him, and all it seemed to do was bury all his hatred down before it came all out today. She knew she had no right to tell Naruto who to consider as his parents, she just hopes that perhaps with time, Naruto will learn to forgive his parents after getting all that anger, rage, and grief out. Your other self is really amazing, Hinata. Naruto complimented while trying to avoid eye contact. Do you really think so? Hinata asked without looking at him. Yeah, she tried to help the other me, even though I was so filled with rage. You're even helping my parents, even when you don't have to. Thank you for that. Anytime, Naruto-kun. I will always be there to help you when you need it. Shikamaru clasped his hand on Naruto's shoulder. So will the rest of us. With all the other rookies nodding in agreement, Naruto looked at all of them with a small grateful smile. Thanks, everyone. I mean it. Meanwhile, the other occupants watched the scene with sadness and pity in their eyes. Kurama and Thorin knew it would be a long time before Naruto ever let go of his hatred for them if he ever does. The two just hope it's not at the end of his life again, so he doesn't die with regrets again in his heart. Thorin was next to speak after a period of silence. So do the rest of us hope for the same, Tsunade said with the others nodding in agreement. Naruto. Naruto turned to his mentor father. I believe you and the other two should listen to what Hinata had to say to you about the elemental nations after your abrupt end. Naruto turned to the girl in question, along with anyone else in the room, as she got up after Minato and Kushina had calmed down enough to listen as well. She sighed before she began recounting her tale. Oh, this is going to be good. I wonder what dirty secrets we'll learn from this. Anko giggled. Hopefully it's dirt we can use against certain individuals in the village, Tsunade said. Everyone looked at the Hokage curiously. What do you mean? Asuma asked. You'll find out later. So let's put a slight pin on this conversation. Medric lectured. Well, after your execution, things got really bad for Konoha. When word got out that the village abused and executed the only son of the Yondaime, a lot of people were not happy. The village was split in two because of it. Those that felt guilty, a bit late for that in Naruto's mind, and those who did not care. The Kazekage, Gaara, the Spring Daimyo, Koyuki, the Waterfall Leader, Shibuki, the Land of Tea Leader, Jiracho, the entirety of Wave, cut all ties with Konoha. They were all disgusted with not only your upbringing, but also that you were executed for doing your job. The Fire Daimyo had to march down to the village after nearly drowning in angry letters from all the different countries that dissolved their treaty with us. He really let all of them have it as he ranted on them for their stupidity. Everyone whistled. Well damn. I was afraid that was going to happen. Tsunade sighed. Did I really mind so much to them? Naruto asked. You were the hero that inspired them, Naruto. You changed their lives for the better. So hearing about your execution will of course upset them. Though upset would be a very huge understatement. Medric explained. The fact that the daimyo came to the village himself means things have gone to shit real quick. And it will only get crazier from here on, Medric advised. Oh boy, the civilian council was disbanded and all of its members were executed and had all of their assets seized. The clan heads had to pay a hefty fine that depleted half of their total income. The shinobi elders were sent to a maximum prison. Danzo tried to fight back thinking this was his opportunity to take over, but Jiraiya and Tsunade killed him after a long battle. His rude Anbu then went on the offensive against the village. It became a bloody massacre, no one knew who was friend or foe. Are you fucking kidding me? Tsunade exploded. I knew that bastard wanted the Hokage seat, but I never thought he would go so far, Jiraiya growled. The rookies looked at the two Sannin in confusion, as well as noticing their sensei stiffening. Who is this guy? Naruto asked. Tsunade growled as she explained. That is Danzo. An old teammate of our sensei. Both of them along with the other two elders trained under the Nidaime Hokage, Tobirama. But both had very different views on how to run the village. The man is a militaristic warhawk that wants to eliminate any possible threats he sees to Konoha so that it is the supreme village in the world. The rookies looked at her incredulously. Does he realize how such a mentality can cause the village to have too many enemies to count and the number of lives that could be lost if we got into a conflict with them? Shikamaru demanded. Jiraiya shrugged his shoulders. He doesn't. If anyone dies he simply sees them as too weak to work in his version of what the village should be. Afterward, the Fire Daimyo wanted to know why Danzo wasn't watched more carefully if he was such a suspicious character, but all Tsunade could do was give excuses, which pissed him off even more. He basically removed nearly all power from the Hokage and basically made her a figurehead, and he was basically calling all the shots now. The rookies and Jonin all flinched. That's a bit harsh. Shikamaru finally said. Tsunade shook her head. Maybe, but I can't blame him for doing that. Why don't you try to get rid of him then? Sakura suggested. We can't. For one, that crafty bastard knows how to cover his tracks, so any of his crimes can't be traced back to him. Not to mention with the support he has in and outside the village, if we try to forcibly detain him, we will be in the same situation our alternative selves were. Jiraiya explained. The rookies all frowned. Then there is nothing we can do? Naruto demanded. At the moment, no. But if we bide our time and work together, we can get rid of him and make him pay for all the crimes he has committed. Tsunade answered. All of our former friends were in denial, and many of them blamed you for all the damage that was done to the village. The only ones who looked remorseful were Shikamaru, Choji, Lee, Tenten, and Shino. Again, a bit for that, thought Naruto. Sasuke was still in a medically induced coma to keep an eye on him. I decided to fuck him over for what he did to you. I added some ingredients to his medicine he was being injected with that slowly killed his ability to produce sperm. Normally the drugs he was being given were to keep him down, so no one knew what was happening to him until it was too late. By the time he was awake, his testicles were like a barren desert. Naruto stared at Hinata in shock. You mean you? She nodded with a smirk. Yup, I made that puny Uchiha the last one in every sense of that word. Well, the last one besides Itachi and that masked bastard claiming to be Madara. Hell, I even injected him with some special enzymes that permanently relaxed the muscles in his genitals so he could no longer get an erection. No children and no sex for that bastard ever again. Though I was saving any poor girl or guy stuck with him from a life of disappointment. He really earned the title Runt of the Uchiha. Holy shit. Literally everyone in the room exclaimed. Did I hear right? A stunned Kurenai asked. Did she just she? Asuma nodded. Yeah, she not only sterilized the Uchiha and made him incapable of an erection. And confirmed he was a runt, Anko said. All was silent before everyone began to shake as they bite their lips, but they could not hold it in as they all burst out laughing. Ha 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 ha. Oh Kami. Kiba gushed out. My sides are burning. Naruto cackled. Damn Hinata, I didn't know you had it in you to be so vindictive. Anko complimented. Hinata blushed. Medric smirked. Like the old saying goes. Hell hath no fury like a woman's scorn. Especially a widow's scorn. Hinata's face became tomato red. WW widow. She stuttered. Of course. I mean your other self and the other Naruto were practically married. Maybe not the traditional way, but ninjas aren't much for traditional. I definitely might have to take you off your senseis for a while and see what I can teach you too. Anko proclaimed as she pulled Hinata into a one-armed hug. She gave the girl a saucy smirk. Especially you Hinata. I bet by the time I am done with you, Naruto will be drooling in your hands, and maybe more. Hinata had gone nuclear red with Naruto not too far behind, though the shy Hyuga had a waterfall of blood going down her nose. Yep. Anko. What? Everyone here knows about the girl's infatuation for the little blonde bundle here. I am just saying I will lend her a hand to getting her man in more ways to one. Anko, the last thing we need is you turning Hinata into a mini-you. Kurenai scolded. What is wrong with me? The snake mistress cried indignantly. Meanwhile, Naruto was blood red as he imagined an older Hinata but wearing Anko's attire. This caused blood to leak down his nose as he shivered from the tightness he was feeling. Kurama chuckled from within his mind. Looks like puberty has finally found its way to you. Shut up. He said weakly. Medric clapped to get everyone's attention again. Alright, let's get back to the viewings. Naruto could not help but roar in laughter, everyone else joined soon after. Kurama was rolling on the floor and could feel his sides hurt from all the laughing. Even Kushina and Minato could not help but chuckle at the girls' antics. Take that Ichigo team. They collectively thought. Hinata coughed out a giggle before she continued. I decided to go to Shizune to become her apprentice in the medical arts. She said I should go to Tsunade, but I told her I wanted nothing to do with that woman that could not do anything to save you. Plus she was taking Sakura and Ino as her students, and I wanted nothing to do with those two either. Ino clutched her chest in mock pain. Ouch. How cold, Hinata. Sakura nodded. I get why, but still that is really off to hear Hinata say that. She finally agreed and began teaching me about poisons, which Anko helped a bit in, and medical ninjutsu. Tsunade, she wasn't the same after your death. I think it just finally broke any fight she had left in her. I think she only took Sakura and Ino in as apprentices, so she didn't have to constantly remember she failed you. Anko cheered. Yeah, I got myself a student. She wrapped Shizune in a semi-tight hug. What do you say, Shizune? Maybe we should take the little Hyuga under our wing and make her into a badass. I am sure we can teach all kinds of things that could be useful to her. Several of the genins blushed as their minds had several ideas of what Anko would try to teach Hinata. Hinata. Well, she was a few seconds away from fainting again. Tsunade smacked Anko over the head and told her to cool down. Anko pouted but adhered to the order. Thanks to my Byakugan and near-perfect chakra control, I excelled. It demanded someone sturdy and strong like a stone. But my nature demanded speed, flexibility, and adaptability. I decided to create my own style of Juken that complemented my two affinities to create a whole new way of using the Byakugan in combat. Hinata gasped. Wait, I am not Earth nature. No, Hinata, and that is nearly a constant that you are not an Earth element. Or at least not your primary. I believe you are currently fire and lightning, but your sensei will have to check just to be sure. Medric explained. That would explain so much. No wonder you struggled with the Juken. Niji realized. What do you mean? Niji? Naruto asked. Naruto, the Juken has always been a very grounded type of taijutsu. It's as the other, Hinata explained. It's about sturdiness and delivering precise, powerful blows to crush our enemies. But if the person has a different affinity, it makes the learning a lot more difficult because what that element demands can be completely different from what the earth element needs. Naruto nodded. I see. One day I was called by the Hyuga elders to the clan dojo. Apparently, they wanted to test Hanabi's skill against me once again. I decided to humor them for a bit and agreed to it. Hanabi tried to weaken my resolve by talking about how pathetic you were and she could have made a better wife for such a fool. That made me snap and forget about any restraint I was planning to show. I rushed right in and knocked off her feet in seconds and beat her to the ground until she was a bleeding mess. She beat Hanabi, Niji exclaimed. Ino flinched. Wow, she just had to use the worst choice of words to press her buttons. Still, I never thought I would hear Hinata actively trying to hurt her sister, Kurenai said. The whole clan was shocked, some of the elders tried to intervene, but I knocked them to the ground with some powerful, but deadly strikes to their groins. TFFFFFFF. Everyone began choking, much to the shy Hyuga's embarrassment. Oh man, I am loving this other Hinata. Anko cheered. The Ashi was terrified by what I just did. He would have ordered me to stand down, but my glare stopped all that. I told him I was done with this bullshit from him and the rest of this disgusting clan. I told them that the shy Hinata was dead and gone forever. They wanted me to be a cold-blooded Hyuga, and they were gonna get it. Niji made a comment about me still being weak like the demon, and I countered by activating the seal on his forehead. The bastard screamed for a few minutes before I got bored and stopped. I told him that next time I won't stop until he was dead on the floor and said the same thing for the rest if they ever insulted you in front of me again. Everyone gasped in shock while Hinata looked at the projection in horror. She used the seal on Niji, Tenten exclaimed. Hinata shook her head. No, that can't be true. I hate that seal. I would never use it on any branch members. She quickly denied. Perhaps not you, Hinata, but this other you seem to have a lot less restraint and her hatred for the village, what it did to Naruto, outweighs your own morals. Kurenai retorts. This is seriously sounding like Sasuke again. Kiba groaned. The difference being that Hinata isn't betraying her village or slaughtering her clan, Shino replied. After that, they never got in my way again. The entire house was afraid of me. I can't blame them. Everyone said. After a whole year, Shizune wanted me to sign the slug contract, but I told her I had another summoning contract in mind. With that, we traveled to the remains of Yuzushi Agakure. Like Kurama said, I was able to enter thanks to your blood in my system from our marriage and found the contract to the Phoenix clan. Wait, there is a Phoenix contract, Naruto exclaimed in shock. It's how the Uzumaki gained their incredible vitality. However, I am afraid to inform you it does not exist in your world. Medric explained. Naruto snapped his fingers. Rats. What are you complaining about, brat? You already have a summoning contract, Jiraiya protested. Naruto blinked a few times before scratching the back of his head. Oh yeah. Whoops. We kept it a secret from everyone, and I worked on learning the super strength technique that Tsunade developed and learning elemental mastery and senjutsu from my summons. I even took some kinjutsu lessons from a friend that Anko recommended. Jiraiya gasped as he stared at the projection with wide eyes. She learned senjutsu how? Everyone, except Tsunade and Kakashi, looked at the Toad Sage in confusion. Wait, what's senjutsu? Naruto asked. Naruto, senjutsu is a special ability that one gains from their summons if they deem the summoner worthy and capable of learning it. Medric began explaining. It focuses on one absorbing in natural energy, the chakra that resides in nature, and mixing it perfectly with your chakra to achieve sage mode. If achieved properly, you are on a completely different level compared to regular shinobi. Your jutsus become infused with natural energy and are known now as sage arts or senjutsu, and far more powerful than normal. There are a few more details, but those are the bullet points you need to know for now. Jiraiya nodded. That's a basic understanding. Mastering senjutsu will easily make you a cage-level shinobi, and only another cage-level shinobi or someone with abilities to countermatch your senjutsu would be able to defeat you. Everyone's jaws dropped at how powerful this sage art could be. And Hinata managed to master it in such a short time. Naruto was beginning to think about how he could ask the Toads to help him with learning about this. This went on for another 7 or so years. By the time I was in my 20s, I became the most powerful member of my age group. I had mastered my sage mode in 3 years, and I was stronger than both Jiraiya and Tsunade combined. Over the years, Shizune and Tsunade started to drift apart. Shizune tried being there as always, but Tsunade just closed her and everyone else off. Hell, even with Sakura and Ino, she kept the relationship professional and never tried to get close to the two of them. After they were done training, she only spoke to them when it was assigning them missions or handing out tasks in the hospital. Tsunade had become a shell of her former self. She was just like how she was when you found her, only worse. This time no one could get near unless it involved the village being endangered or something happening at the hospital. Jiraiya and Shizune tried many times, but nothing worked. The Tsunade Senju they knew was gone, and she was not coming back. Tsunade. I'm fine, Jiraiya, let's just keep watching. Then during the last battle in the second invasion by Oda with Iwa and Kumo helping this time, I fought Sasuke after he left for Orochimaru again a few years earlier. He proclaimed the same bullshit from before. Talking about killing off old Konoha and then going after his brother before he would revive his clan. He said he was gonna make sure I was gonna be one of his wives as a way to stick to you in the afterlife. Everyone glared at the screen in anger, but none more so than Neji, Hinata, Kurenai, Kakashi, Tsunade, Anko, Sakura, and Naruto. Neji Nai-san, Hinata muttered as she tried to rein her cousin, while also controlling her own rising anger. Easy, Nai-chan. Anko gritted out. Sakura and Naruto looked at the screen in distress and anger. Did Naruto mean so little to him? See what your mercy has done. The fool has allowed his greed for power and thirst for revenge has consumed him. He does not honor you or regards you in any kind of nostalgia. He sees you as a pebble. A piece of trash that was in his way, so he kicked you into the winds. That's what Konoha does. They just take and take. Aren't you sick of it? Kurama voiced his vessel. Naruto stayed silent as he stared at the screen. I beat the little bastard to the ground without too much trouble, since he underestimated me far too much. His curse mark form proved to be troublesome, but I handled it easily with my sage mode and elemental jukin. I ended up beating the little bastard to the ground before I smashed his face into a million pieces with my enhanced strength. Jiraiya, Tsunade, Kakashi, and Guy fought Orochimaru, the Sandaime Tsuchikage, and the Yondaime Reikage. Go Hinata. Anko cheered. Hinata. 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 Hinata blushed at all the praise she was getting. TTT thank you, everyone. I fought against their Jinchuriki later on in the invasion. I was being pushed to my limits even with my sage mode, but then I unlocked this purple chakra. The chakra of Himura Otsutsuki. It merged with my sage mode and transformed my eyes. They evolved into the Tensogen. It gave me the edge I desperately needed. Everyone looked surprised at the change to the Byakugan. Tensogen. Everyone repeated. I didn't know the Byakugan had an evolution, Neji said with Hinata nodding. Neither had ever heard anything about this. Medric nodded. It does have one, it's just you need to go through several steps to obtain it. For now, I will say that Senjutsu is one of the steps to obtaining those eyes. Kurama looked up at the screen in shock. He remembered Himura briefly. He was the brother of his father, though his father only spoke minorly about his family as he was on death's door when he split he and his siblings into the form they were now known as. And this Hyuga managed to access his power due to her connection to her vessel in him. The fox wondered if a similar result could be achieved with a version he is familiar with. A theory to test for another time. The fox decided as he took a bite out of his meal to focus again on the projection. I used my new power to fight off their Biju forms, and I managed to free the tailed beasts and send them back to the summoning realm, but before they left, I took a sample of their chakras for the final part of the plan we had concocted. Releasing the Biju from their vessels, which ended up killing the Forge and Chiriki, had pissed off the cages of the enemy alliance. Without their Biju, they were forced to retreat, but they were not done yet. They hired the Akatsuki to help destroy the leaf and get back at me. Itachi especially wanted my head for killing Sasuke. The leaf knew it would not win easily and managed to convince Suna, Taka, Spring, and Kiri to help in the war. The daimyo even sent an army of his elite samurai. I am glad they are getting at least some help for the invasion, Ino said. I'm guessing they would be willing to help us with it meant getting rid of the Akatsuki and Orochimaru, considering the threat they possessed. Iwa and Kumo are more of a bonus, as many villages have had issues with those two villages in particular. Shikamaru explained. Then the third invasion occurred about 6 months later, which gave me some time to master my new powers. The battle between the two forces was bloody and destructive. I fought Itachi, Pain, and Conan at the same time. Jiraiya gasped as he stared at two faces from his past that he never thought he would see again. Yahiko. Conan. Everyone turned to the Toad Sage in confusion. Jiraiya, how do you know those two? Tsunade asked. Remember during the second Shinobi War when we met those 3 orphans that Orochimaru thought we should kill? Tsunade thought back to that as the memories came in. Are they? She began as Jiraiya nodded in response. Yeah, they are the same kids I watched over for a few months and trained. But Yahiko did not have the Rinnegan, it was Nagato. How did he get them and why does he refer to himself as Pain? Damn, those are some stacked odds against the girl. Anko cursed as many nodded in agreement. What's that Dijutsu that Pain guy has? Naruto asked. The Rinnegan. The Toad Sage replied. Kakashi looked at Jiraiya in shock before his face turned grim as he looked at the screen. So it actually exists. I always thought it was a myth. It's very real. Just what exactly is it? Kiba asked. It's one of the 3 great Taijutsu like the Sharingan and Byakugan. However, these eyes are unique. These eyes are said to be the one that belongs to the first god of shinobi, the Rakuto Sennin. Whoever has those eyes is literally God in human form. Not even the 5 Kage together could beat someone who wields those eyes. Jiraiya explained. All of the genin and the jonin that did not know much looked at Jiraiya with wide eyes. Could such Taijutsu be so powerful and actually exist? It seemed impossible, but Jiraiya confirmed they are very real, and to actually hear what they can do, it was actually a little frightening. They dread to think about what abilities one could wield with those eyes. Brrrrrr. Kurama growled from his cage. Naruto frowned at his tenant's action. Why was the fox so agitated? What's got you so riled? You humans have no idea of the true power of the Rinnegan and the Rakuto Sennin. There is still so little that you humans understand but the world around you. Naruto was unsure what the fox meant but decided to focus his attention on the projection again. I managed to kill Conan and Itachi, but I was nearly drained from the battle. Pain saw this and would have killed me if Shizune had not jumped in and taken the blow for me. When I saw my master die in front of me I snapped. My chakra levels spiked to ungodly levels. I began absorbing chakra from all around me and I absorbed the chakra of all the Biju I had collected over the years. I achieved what Kurama and you had wanted. My hair transformed completely white with a pair of horns growing from the sides of my head, but most importantly, I grew a 3rd eye on my forehead. The Rin Sharingan. Kurama was right, I was the reincarnation of Kagaya Otsutsuki, or to be more precise, I was the atavism of Kagaya Otsutsuki. BFFFFFFFFFT. Within the seal, Kurama comically performed one of the biggest spit takes anyone could have probably seen, but thankfully for his own dignity, no one saw it. Though that did not stop him from screaming. Wait. Naruto flinched from the loud shouting coming from his tenant. There's no way. How could the power of that ever appear again in this world? Why are you screaming? Just who is this Kagaya woman? You know very little of the monsters that used to walk around this earth ninja. That woman is one of them. She was power incarnate with just one flick of her wrist she could create and destroy on a whim. She is the mother of all chakra. The demon rabbit goddess. That is Kagaya Otsutsuki. Rin Sharingan. Everyone uttered as they stared at the new Taijutsu in front of them. They could see that it's a combination of the Sharingan and Rinnegan, meaning it would have the abilities of both. However, after hearing Jiraiya's proclamation on the prowess of the Rinnegan and knowing how powerful the Sharingan can be, they couldn't imagine how powerful a fusion of the two could be. It's one of the original Taijutsu that the Sharingan and Rinnegan derive from. Kagaya Otsutsuki was the only one in the elemental nation to possess these eyes. With these eyes she'd cast a genjutsu that could cover the entire planet and everyone on it to fall under her illusion and even be able to travel to different dimensions without issue. Medric explained though that was not scratching the surface of what Rin Sharingan could do. Everyone just stood completely slack-jawed at the deity's explanation. However, by the tone he was giving, they knew he was not lying. If those eyes could be something like that, just what type of monster was this Kagaya woman? And now Hinata had the same power. It was a lot to take in. Kurama scoffed as he knew the god was still some details about the Rin Sharingan, but perhaps that was better. The humans were not ready to hear the full truth about what the eyes were capable of, let alone the origins of Kagaya Otsutsuki. I had the power of the literal mother of all chakra. Pain stood no chance against me, and I defeated him after a long fight. I destroyed his eyes so one could ever use them again. Everyone nodded in agreement. That was actually a good plan. Tsunade complimented. Best to get rid of eyes like that to avoid someone else from using them, Jiraiya advised. Good, that Hyuga girl did well. While I shudder that she has the powers of Kagaya Otsutsuki, she did her world a favor in destroying those eyes. No one since the sage has been worthy of having those eyes. Not even his sons weren't worthy enough for his eyes. Naruto was just confused by his tenant's words. Just what are you talking about? Things that you are not worthy of hearing or understanding. Asshole. Naruto grumbled. I appeared over the enemy leaders and both sides were shocked at my new appearance. The enemy cages would not stand down and told Madara to make his move. Madara appeared in the same clothes as he did when he tried to take Kurama. That same vile orange mask pissed me off to no end. He used the Ito Tensei to revive the previous